Chapter 827. Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master were slightly startled. They looked at each other with a strand of joy in their eyes. They were clear what comprehending the apocalyptic second sword at the ruler realm meant. It meant that the great void heaven temple might give birth to another primal chaos existence. The ruler realm was ultimately weak in the laws and profound mysteries. Comprehending the apocalyptic second sword on such a weak and simple foundation of laws and profound mysteries. This required an extremely frightening comprehension ability. The previous person who achieved this was the current Hall Master of the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall in the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Myriad Elephant Palace Hall Master was extremely low profile and focused on cultivation. But amongst the many Hall Masters in the Great Void Heaven Temple, he was ranked in the top 3 and was even stronger than Ancestor Devil. Dongbua Shui Ying is very young. Forefather Tian Yu grinned. It is rare for him to have such a comprehension ability. Haha, it is rare. True God disciples came generation after generation. Those who could become golden robe disciples were all outstanding, and it was not hard for them to become void gods. These generations of true God disciples could not even enter the eyes of Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master. But a true God disciple like Dongbua Shui Ying, who comprehended the apocalyptic second sword, was too rare. He was like a piece of unpolished jade that could release its brilliance with some carving. He is younger than Myriad Elephant Palace Hall Master in the past. Sword Master added, with such comprehension ability, it is indeed possible for him to reach the primal chaos realm in the future. Watch over and groom him in the dark. Forefather Tian Yu said, we still have to let him temper himself. The moment he finished speaking, the treasure spirit of the Palace of Time sounded once again. Palace Master, the golden-robed disciple Dongbua Shui Ying is currently breaking through to the Void God realm. He is guiding the primal chaos void energy to descend, and his breakthrough method is the Void Walker lineage. We can ascertain that he is a Void Walker. Void Walker? Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master looked at each other with astonishment. This brat actually cultivated the Void Walker lineage? Forefather Tian Yu was startled. Who is his teacher? The Void Walker lineage. It belonged to a unique cultivation system. It was unlike the laws and profound mysteries, bloodline cultivation, ancestor mother religion, ancient cultivation, and other systems that were universal. The total number of Void Walkers in the entire 5 sacred realms and the Chaos Void was pitifully small. It was not even comparable to the number of ultimate existences. The Void Walker lineage had 2 cosmos gods and was considered relatively powerful. No wonder I felt that his body was quite strong in the battle between true divinity disciples. The Sword Master laughed. So it's a Void Walker. However, he's also very careful. He actually didn't even use his termination energy. The requirements for the inheritance of the Void Walker are extremely stringent, and there are very few of them. To think that he could obtain one of them. Forefather Tian Yu praised. As the cultivation of the Walker's hidden secret became more profound, the Void Walker's ability to escape would also become stronger. Their bodies would gradually merge with the Void, allowing them to stealthily use the Void to sneak up on their enemies and launch a sneak attack. Their escape speed would also be extremely fast. Inside the Temple of Time, on the planet where the gale was howling, Dongbua Shui Ying was indeed sitting cross-legged as he attempted to break through. Since he comprehended the apocalyptic second sword, he would first break through to the Void God level. He had long comprehended the 21st level of Walker's hidden secret. At this moment, he was guiding the primal chaos void energy into his body. With the primal chaos void energy as the source, his body was rapidly transforming. Hong, hong, hong. Even though he had just broken through from the 20th level to the 21st level, this was a breakthrough from the true God realm to the Void God realm. His life essence was undergoing a transformation, and the transformation of his body was extremely intense. Every muscle and bone was borrowing the array diagram to absorb the primal chaos void energy. Even the finest particles in his body were transforming into the primal chaos void. His body was more compatible with the primal chaos void than those void creatures. The process of breaking through was extremely long. Determination energy that was filled with sharpness formed in his body. With determination energy stored within, Dongbua Shueing opened his eyes. His entire body seemed to have become one with the void. He was the void, and the void was him. His overall strength had greatly improved to a new level. He was a member of the Great Void Heaven Temple. In the future, he would have to cultivate the Walker's hidden secret, and it was impossible for him to hide it forever. During the true God-disciple battle with many spectators, it was not suitable for him to reveal himself. But within the Palace Hall of Time, only the treasure spirit of the Palace Hall of Time knew about it. The treasure spirit would report. Those who were qualified to know could be counted with one's fingers. His teacher, Gu Qi, had mentioned before that he could ask Forefather Tian Yu and Swordmaster if he wanted to find him in the future. Clearly, Gu Qi trusted Forefather Tian Yu and the others. Hence, Dongbua Shueing felt that it was fine for his identity as a Void Walker to be known by the highest level of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Teacher, who exactly did you offend in the past? Dongbua Shueing muttered inwardly. Only after leaving his hometown Cosmos and coming to the 7-star oceanic sacred world did he understand what kind of identity and status his teacher Gu Qi had. He was one of the final realm existences. That time, he was heavily injured and nearly lost his life. He had even told Shueing not to reveal that his teacher was Gu Qi. Otherwise, he would lose his life. Despite knowing that Shueing was a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple, he still reminded Shueing. Who exactly did he offend? Dongbua Shueing, little doll. A cheerful voice rang out. Forefather. Dongbua Shueing recognized the voice the moment he heard it. He immediately greeted respectfully. This was not the first time he had heard Forefather Tian Yu's voice. Who is your Voidwalker lineage's teacher? Forefather Tian Yu's voice continued asking. The raging winds continued to howl in the surroundings. Dongbua Shueing could not see Forefather Tian Yu, but he still replied respectfully, Gu Qi. It's him. Wu, it's actually him? This is going to be troublesome. Remember, do not tell anyone that you are Gu Qi's disciple. Amen, how about this? I will send a message to the Void Primogenitor and tell him about you. If anyone discovers your identity as a Void Walker, just say that you are the Void Primogenitor's disciple. Forefather Tan, you reminded, remember, do not say that you are Gu Qi's disciple. Yes. Dongbua Shueing replied. He could not help but ask, Forefather, does my teacher have a great enemy? Gu Qi is slightly mad. He dares to do anything. Forefather Tian, you said, regardless, do not get involved with him for now. Otherwise, you can only stay within the Great Void Heaven Temple and not leave. The moment you leave, you will be ambushed. I understand. Dongbua Shueing was inwardly startled. There is also the matter of you comprehending the apocalyptic second sword at the ruler realm. Do not flaunt it to others. It is better for you to remain low profile. Both I and Swordmaster think highly of you. Forefather Tian Yu instructed. I understand. Dongbua Shueing acknowledged. It was not beneficial for him to flaunt it. Since you have become a void god, then hurry up and become an Inner Hall Elder. Forefather Tian Yu instructed. Yes. Inner Hall Elders had an extremely high status within the Great Void Heaven Temple. They were famous across the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void. The reason why they had such a status was because of their corresponding strength. At the entrance of the Palace Hall of Time, time-space distorted. A figure appeared from the distorted time-space. He was none other than the white-robed Dongbua Shueing. He was looking at that towering star pagoda from afar. The star pagoda was the only pagoda that could match the height of the Great Void Palace Hall. It had a unique and important status within the Great Void Heaven Temple. But to enter, one had to be a void god at the very least. According to hearsay, the star pagoda was refined by Lord Lo Chung, and there is one in each of the 6 great holy grounds. Dongbua Shueing thought, according to hearsay, the star pagoda involves a huge secret, and one has to get through the 5th level of star pagoda before one can know about it. The Great Void Heaven Temple had its own rules. Void gods at the origin birth realm had to get through the third level of Star Pagoda within 10 billion years before they could become an Inner Hall Elder. Currently, there is only a single origin birth realm Inner Hall Elder in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple because it was too difficult, ridiculously difficult. The others were all Unity Realm Inner Hall Elders. At the Unity Realm, one had to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda before they could become an Inner Hall Elder. I'll first enter and have a look. What exactly is the huge secret that Teacher Gucci isn't telling me about? Dongbua Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the Star Pagoda. Asterisk, there was only one night watch today. Rest early and watch the women's volleyball finals tomorrow morning. Ashamed. Previously, I was very excited watching the badminton games. I was so excited that my thighs became numb. Chapter 828. The towering Star Pagoda did not have any protectors guarding its entrance. It did not need any protectors either. Any void god in the Great Void Heaven Temple was qualified to enter. South Dongbua Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the entrance of the Star Pagoda. Look, isn't that Dongbua Shuang? Its senior disciple brother Dongbua Shuang. He flew into the Star Pagoda. He really entered the Star Pagoda. Some of the true God disciples flying within the Great Void Heaven Temple saw Dongbua Shuang flying into the Star Pagoda. They were all startled at that moment. Because of the suppression of the sacred world, it was hard for them to detect the aura of Dongbua Shuang from afar. But the requirement to enter the Star Pagoda was to reach the Void God realm. This was something that could not be violated. He has already become a Void God. Many true God disciples were dumbstruck. He had just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple and had just participated in the true God disciple battle, yet he had already stepped into the Void God realm. But many disciples were still rejoicing. With a golden robe disciple becoming a Void God, they would have a higher chance of entering the top 10 in the next true God disciple battle. It would be best if 8 or 10 of them could break through at the same time. But breaking through in the laws and profound mysteries was clearly not that easy. Dongbua Shuang flew into the pagoda door of the Star Pagoda. The pagoda door had always been open, and it was dark and unfathomable. As he flew in, he could only feel the surrounding space stacking up. After flying for a while, he saw a vast, desolate land. That is, Dongbua Shuang saw a relatively conspicuous mountain peak standing on the desolate land. One side of the mountain peak was cut flat, and there were 3 unfamiliar words written on it. But the meaning contained within the words was instantly understood by Dongbua Shuang. It was the word Star Pagoda. There were even carvings by the side of the mountain wall. Those were carvings of a humanoid creature. He seemed slightly thin and small, and his armor was a close-fitting inner armor. He was currently coldly looking at Dongbua Shuang, who was outside. Boom! At the instant his eyes met with this sculpture, Dongbua Shuang suddenly felt fear in his heart. Even though he could feel a vast and boundless pressure when he saw Forefather Tianyu and the Sword Master, he could still feel it. At the very least, Forefather Tianyu and the Sword Master didn't have any hostility towards him. That kind of pressure was merely caused by the huge difference in their levels of life. But at this moment, Dongbua Shuang was trembling uncontrollably. The carvings on the wall seemed to have come to life. The invisible aura caused Dongbua Shuang to see a shocking scene. This was a skinny and small life form wearing a tight-fitting robe. He had a bald head, and there were many cultivators around him. The aura of these cultivators varied in strength, but the weakest was at the Unity Realm. The strongest, too, were even emitting the aura of Primal Chaos Realm. The one. 5-meter tall, skinny, and small life form let out a savage growl. Its body abruptly turned into a lump of black light that shot out in all directions, engulfing everything in its path. All the cultivators, including the 2 Primal Chaos Realm giants, were swept by the black light. All of them were annihilated. Not only were their bodies destroyed, even their weapons and armors were completely shattered. The endless black light immediately gathered back. He turned back into a skinny and small life form. He coldly swept his gaze across the empty surroundings. His eyes did not have any trace of emotion. Closely following that, this scene dissipated. Donghua Shuiying looked at the carvings of the skinny and small life form beside the three-word star pagoda on the wall. The battle scene just now, those cultivators who were massacred, including the two primal chaos realm giants, their panic was so real. It shouldn't be fake. This star pagoda was refined by Lord Lo Chung. There was no meaning in creating a fake piece of information after leaving behind this scene. Almost all the primal chaos realm existences in the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void are famous. As long as I carefully collect the information, I might be able to find out the identity of the 2 primal chaos realm giants that were killed. Donghua Shuiying thought. Even though his teacher, Gu Qi, had given him some information, it was only about the living primal chaos realm existences. As for the 2 who were massacred in this scene, Donghua Shuiying did not have any information about them. They might have died in battle. Who exactly is this skinny and small life form? Unless this is the huge hidden secret that my teacher, Gu Qi, mentioned, but I can only find out after passing the 5th level of Star Pagoda. Donghua Shuiying understood that he was still too weak. His teacher Gu Qi might have given him enough information, but there were some secrets that he did not mention. Clearly, he did not want to spoil the mental state of Donghua Shuiying. For instance, the sacred master of the ancient sacred world had enmity with almost all the final realm existences. For instance, the most primitive ancient sacred world was ultimately shattered, or the final realm existences had fallen before. All sorts of secrets were not suitable for someone at his level to know. Who? Donghua Shuiying continued moving forward. He flew past the mountain wall and looked at this vast, desolate land. Countless gray light surged out from underground, condensing into a blurred figure. Finally, it completely took shape. This was a gray-armored warrior about 3 meters tall. There was a unique curved horn embedded on his shoulder armor. His blue-skinned head was currently staring at Donghua Shuiying. Kill him, and you can proceed to the 2nd level. The Star Pagoda treasure spirit's voice sounded by the ears of Donghua Shuiying. A trial? Donghua Shuiying carefully observed his opponent. He could not help but feel startled. This gray-armored warrior stood there coldly. The aura he emitted was incompatible with the laws of the world around him. Cultivators like Donghua Shuiying, the ancestor mother religion, ancient cultivation, bloodline cultivation, and other systems were compatible with the laws of the world. But this gray-armored warrior in front of him had an aura that caused the surrounding void to slightly distort. That was the interference of the laws of the world. Amen. Who is my opponent this time? The gray-armored warrior looked at Donghua Shuiying too. His talent allowed him to easily sense the aura of the soul of Donghua Shuiying, so weak. A trash that can't even enter the mainstream. Donghua Shuiying observed for a while before acting. He did not display his slaughter domain because even though he had become a void god, he relied on the Voidwalker lineage. His understanding of the laws did not improve at all. The slaughter domain was of great help in the true god-disciple battle. But against this opponent in front of him, Donghua Shuiying could faintly feel that it was useless. Go! With a thought from Donghua Shuiying, so, 3 black-robed Donghua Shuiying appeared by the side of that gray-armored warrior. All of them wielded a spear and immediately displayed the strongest killing move he grasped, the apocalyptic second sword. Hoo. In an instant, dense spear shadows flashed, and each spear stabbed out 81 times in a row. The 81 spear shadows vaguely formed a huge formation diagram, and 3 spear formation diagrams directly enveloped the gray-armored warrior. The gray-armored warrior stood there unmoving. He allowed the 3 great spear array diagrams to strike on his body, leaving behind some white spots on his gray armor. So weak, the gray-armored warrior said. Donghua Shuiying's expression changed. South, the gray-armored warrior moved. He disappeared from his original location. Closely following that, he appeared by the side of Donghua Shuiying. He waved his right hand. There were actually 2 scimitars on each of his arms. As he waved his right hand, the scimitars brought with them a destructive force that swept across the body of Dongbua Shuiying. Dongbua Shuiying's body also dissipated, but in the distance he appeared again. Dongbua Shuiying looked solemnly at the gray-armored warrior. Teleportation, the suppression of the sacred world, was extremely powerful. Ordinary Void Walkers at the Origin Birth stage would not be able to teleport. As a Void Walker who had stepped into the Origin Birth stage, Dongbua Shuiying was able to teleport. He did not expect his opponent to be able to teleport as well. You could teleport as well? The moment the gray-armored warrior waved his scimitars, he discovered that his attack was merely an afterimage. Dongbua Shuiying also understood that his opponent's body was too strong. His attacks with his clones would not be able to threaten his opponent at all. Thus, he immediately wielded his deep violet spear and teleported into close combat. Shwa shwa shwa. The silhouettes of the gray-armored warrior and Dongbua Shuiying flickered continuously as they engaged in close combat. Every time their weapons clashed, Dongbua Shuiying would only be at a slight disadvantage by relying on his physical strength. His soul aura is very weak, but his strength is close to mine. The cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple are indeed proficient in fighting against those of a higher level. The gray-armored warrior thought to himself. The killing intent in his heart grew even denser. Chapter 829. An hour later, at the entrance of the Star Tower, Dongbua Shuiying appeared out of thin air. His face was pale as an evil energy was constantly being expelled from his body. Once it reached the outside world, the gray evil energy would wail and turn into nothingness. I disregarded my injuries and gave it my all, yet I could only injure him. I couldn't kill him at all. Dongbua Shuiying looked at the entrance in front of him. The first level of Star Pagoda is so difficult. The apocalyptic second sword was said to be able to allow a ruler realm expert to escape from Unity realm expert. However, his 3 clones apocalyptic second sword couldn't even injure him. According to the intelligence I know, one has to have the strength of an ordinary Unity realm expert to pass through the first level of Star Pagoda. Those who can pass through the second level are at the peak of Unity realm, and those who can pass through the third level are at the peak of Unity realm. Dongbua Shuiying pondered. Even though I've grasped the apocalyptic second sword, I'm still far from a Unity realm expert. Ordinary void gods have to reach the peak of the Unity realm. Dongbua Shuiying sighed inwardly. Very difficult. Even the Great Void Heaven Temple, some of the Unity realm experts would only be able to pass through the 3rd or 4th level and become an Outer Hall Elder. Unity realm experts had to get through the 5th level before they could take on the role of an Inner Hall Elder. At the 5th level, they would have reached the boundary of the primal chaos realm. Furthermore, they would have extremely high attainments in certain aspects, allowing them to survive and escape even when facing primal chaos realm giants. For this reason, the status of an Inner Hall Elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple was extremely high. As an existence that had passed the 5th level, he could easily kill hundreds or thousands of ordinary Unity realm experts. They could no longer be treated as Unity realm experts. And in the legends, there were still those at the Unity realm who could pass through the 6th level. That was someone who could fight against ordinary primal chaos giants. However, this was too rare. It seemed like the Great Void Heaven Temple didn't have a single one. It had happened in history. Of course, there were even more heaven-defying people. Those who passed the 7th level at the Unity realm were legends in the 6 Holy Lands. In the long history of the 6 Holy Lands, there were only 2 such people. Those 2 had already reached the Primal Chaos realm and were extremely terrifying existences at the Primal Chaos realm. Back at the Temple of Time, on a planet filled with beautiful grasslands, Dongbua Shuiying was cultivating in seclusion. According to the regulations of the Great Void Heaven Temple, after becoming a void god, one must get through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda within 10 billion years to become an Inner Hall Elder. Otherwise, one must become an Outer Hall Elder and be sent to the Primal Chaos City. Dongbua Shuiying thought to himself. The 10 billion years here were equivalent to the outside world's time. If one had enough origin world stones, one could accelerate the flow of time inside the Temple of Time by thousands or even tens of thousands of times. With so many origin world stones, the great Void Heaven Temple would be happy to see such a scene. Void gods would require 5 origin world rocks every 100 million years within the Palace Hall of Time, where time was accelerated by 100 times. If he were to cultivate inside for 10 billion years, that would be a total of 500 origin world rocks. He couldn't afford to play around. I should be able to do it. There is an ordinary void god, inner hall elder in this era. If you include history, there are even more. Dongbua Shui focused on his cultivation. After becoming a void god, he naturally had to properly cultivate. Previously, he had just broken through and went to the Star Pagoda to have a look out of curiosity. Because his fleshy body had broken through to the void god level, his fleshy body would nurture his soul, and his soul would gradually become stronger. The improvement of his soul allowed Dongbua Shui Ying's comprehension and cultivation to improve by leaps and bounds. Currently, he was focusing on the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple. Naturally, his previous comprehension made him feel that the Tao of Mirage was the greatest, followed by the Tao of Slaughter. Time passed. On this grassland planet, the weeds were growing continuously. They grew taller and taller until they were even taller than Dongbua Shui Ying, who was seated cross-legged. In the end, they withered, turning the grassland planet into a piece of desolation. On this desolate planet, weeds gradually broke out from the ground and grew once again. Grow, wither, this was a reincarnation cycle. One reincarnation after another. 1,000,000 years, more than 100 million years passed. To mortals, this was an incomparably long time. But to the current Dongbua Shui Ying, this was merely a relatively short amount of time he needed to deduce and perfect the Tao of Mirage. 230 million years. This was the amount of time Shui Ying needed to break through in his Tao of Mirage after his soul reached the void god level. The cross-legged seated Dongbua Shui Ying opened his eyes. There was an enormous celestial body revolving within his eyes. Hong Long Long, his inner world. It was also undergoing a huge transformation. The originally vast, continent-sized inner world was currently distorting. Under the influence of an unseen law, the entire inner world was transforming from a continent into a cosmos sphere. Sphere. The sun star was spherical. The moon star was spherical. The cosmos was spherical. Every part of the spherical surface was absolutely perfect. The distance between them and the central core was absolutely equal. This was a very perfect and high-grade body. When one stepped from the true God ruler to the void God, the inner world of the laws and profound mysteries lineage would undergo a huge transformation. But how it transformed was related to the law system comprehended. The Tao of Mirage would evolve into the Mirage law system. When some broke through to the void god realm, their inner world would become like the material realm. From a huge continent world, it would transform into a large number of land worlds coexisting together. Many land worlds coexisting together to form a single entity. This was also a form of improvement. Another instance, the inner world would transform into the dark abyss. From a huge land world, it would transform into many layers of land worlds, stacking on top of each other until it formed an intestine-shaped entity. Material realm, dark abyss, sun star, moon star, these were existences at the same level, yet they represented different directions. The current evolution of Dongbua Shui Ying's inner world was leaning towards the direction of the sun star and moon star. Hong Long Long, finally, the inner world had turned into an enormous planet. It was incomparably huge, comparable to the size of a sun star and moon star. But in terms of power, it was much weaker. The same volume of soil and the same volume of steel were naturally different. Currently, the enormous planet in his body was merely newly born. Mirage planet. Dongbua Shui Ying sensed the enormous planet in his body. The current operating law of this planet was the new Mirage law system that Dongbua Shui Ying comprehended. This system used the Tao of Mirage as its core and fused together with many other profound mysteries. Even the profound mysteries of the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple were partially fused into it. It was the same Tao. Different people who walked out of it would be different. In order to reach the Void God Realm, one only had to create a complete law system. Following that, Dongbua Shui Ying's soul improved once again with the Mirage law system as its core. Time passed. After spending 200 million years to break through in the Tao of Mirage, Shui Ying had comprehended the apocalyptic second sword and had the experience of breaking through in the Tao of Mirage. Hence, he spent just 150 million years to break through in the Tao of Slaughter. But the final Tao of Ripple was relatively taxing to cultivate. Dongbua Shui Ying was not in a rush. Just like his teacher, Bloodblade, his breakthrough in the laws and profound mysteries was slow and taxing. Most of his attention was placed on the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. He had comprehended the apocalyptic second sword as a ruler, and now that he had broken through in the Tao of Slaughter, comprehending the apocalyptic third sword, this allowed Dongbua Shui Ying to reap many benefits. His Tao of Ripple was also gradually improving. After all, as his horizons and realm became higher, the difficulty in comprehending would naturally decrease. He was not in a rush at all. The Palace Hall of Time could accelerate time by 100 times, allowing him to cultivate leisurely. Chapter 830. After cultivating in seclusion for 6 billion years, his wave Tao broke through and reached the Void God Realm, forming its own system of laws. After cultivating in seclusion for 3 billion years, Dongbua Shui Ying finally mastered the apocalyptic third sword. This caused Dongbua Shui Ying to sigh in shock. He had grasped the second sword when he was in the ruler realm, and had even grasped the slaughter law system after that. Who would have thought that the apocalyptic third sword would take such a long time? After mastering the apocalyptic third sword, the reason why Dongbua Shui Ying chose to challenge the Star Pagoda after coming out of closed-door cultivation was also for the sake of actual combat. This time, his walker's hidden secret had reached the 26th level. Coupled with the apocalyptic third sword, he was indeed able to easily kill the enemies on the first level of the Star Pagoda. That gray-armored creature finally dissipated into a gray radiance and fused with the ground. The Star Pagoda opened a spatial entrance that led to a higher level. Dongbua Shui Ying stepped into the second level. On the second layer, he still won. Ascending to the third floor, defeated, Dongbua Shui Ying could only go to the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall and flip through many books at the Void God level. He pondered over them and cultivated within the Palace Hall of Time, working hard to improve himself. But clearly, after comprehending the apocalyptic third sword, it was extremely difficult for him to improve his strength any further. Even if the slaughter domain was perfected, it was still limited in helping him fight at the third level of Star Pagoda. It was obvious that it was extremely difficult to become an inner hall elder at the origin birth stage. While Dongbua Shui Ying was flipping through manuals and cultivating in the Great Void Heaven Temple, in his homeworld. In his hometown cosmos, the ancestor mother religion had long been destroyed. Being a void god, Bloodblade was unparalleled across the entire cosmos, causing the cosmos to be much more peaceful than in the past. In the starry sky, a young man in tattered robes was seated cross-legged on a damaged meteor. His hair was disheveled, and his fingers were moving about, causing divine markings to ceaselessly appear around him. He was the son of Imperial Monarch Dongbo, who was renowned for his strength and status, and was only inferior to the Bloodblade. Imperial Monarch Dongbo. Dongbo Yu. Boom! The body of the youth in tattered robes trembled slightly. The countless divine runes around him formed an extremely beautiful pattern. It was so perfect. Laws of heaven and earth. Laws of heaven and earth. Dongbo's voice was trembling, and his eyes were filled with surprise and disbelief. I've comprehended it. I've comprehended it. Father, I've comprehended the laws of heaven and earth. Father, I've figured it out. At this moment, Dombua's jade-like eyes were filled with tears. Dombua Jade, was favored by the heavens. From the moment he was born, there was a giant behind him that could support the entire world, Dombua Shuang. When he was born in the physical world of the Xia people, his father was the strongest expert in the entire history of the Xia people. He was a hero who saved the entire Xia people and was also the leader of the Xia people's world. Dombua, was born with the strongest backing. He and his sister were carefree. Although their parents were strict with them, they did not feel pressured at all. In the world of the Xia people and the Crimson Rock Mountain, his father had caused huge waves in the deity world and the dark abyss, and his strength and status continued to rise. Although he had inherited the outstanding talent of his parents, the best resources, and even the personal guidance of his parents, he was still stuck at the limits of the deity realm. It was only a setback in his relationship that caused him to transform and step into the world deity realm. After that, his cultivation speed slowed down once more. His father became the new third ancestor. He even became a ruler. His strength and status were so high that he was second only to Bloodblade. Even Bloodblade was Dombua Jade's grandmaster. He had extremely good conditions and even had the opportunity to enter the Devil Mountain cosmos to cultivate. Even the third prince, Jiao Yun Lu, who had an extremely high status in the Devil Mountain cosmos, had given his father face and nurtured him with all his might. Even after billions of years, he was still stuck at the stage for world deity realm. His father, Dombua Shuang, originally had a bright future ahead of him. He was the most talented cultivator in the entire cosmos, and his cultivation speed was much faster than Bloodblade and the others. There was still a very long time before this epic ended. As long as he cultivated step by step with his talent, it would not be hard for his father to step into the so-called Void God Unity realm. When he went to the Holy Ground, the Great Void Heaven Temple, he might be able to improve further, and there was a high chance that he would become a Primal Chaos Realm Giant. But for him, for his mother, Jing Xiao, and for his father, Dombua Shuang, who could not bear to see the souls of his loved ones dissipating, chose to leave the cosmos and enter the vast primal chaos void. Jing Xiao was not willing. Dombua Jade, was not willing either. They could face death calmly, but his father was not willing to watch helplessly. Thus, his father did not hesitate to enter the primal chaos void despite the danger, embarking on a journey to the distant sacred world. How long was this journey? Could his father reach the sacred world? If he reached the sacred world, it was said that the sacred world was 1,000,000,000,000 times stronger than the cosmos. There were many experts and dangers. Would his father be safe as he fought with his mother, Jing Xiao, for Dombua Jade? He was afraid. Afraid that his father would die. Afraid that his father would die in the primal chaos void. Afraid that he would die in the sacred world. There were too many possibilities. Everything made Dombua Jade afraid. When his father was shielding him from the wind and rain, he had never felt it because he was used to it ever since he was born. His father was that towering figure. But now that his father left the cosmos and embarked on a journey filled with danger, he was truly afraid. He was filled with regret. He regretted not transcending. Thus, he became even more frenzied in his cultivation. He did not wish to disappoint his father. Within the vast river of time, the undulating figure was none other than Dombua Jade. Now, with the help of the laws of the heaven and earth, that figure directly flew upwards. Although the river water was dragging him, it was unable to stop him. It merely caused some waves, and Dombua Jade flew out of the river of time. I transcended, Father. Dombua Jade stood on the meteorite and muttered. Dombua Jade Monarch Residence. Dombua Jade saw his mother, Jing Xiao. You are. Jing Xiao looked at her son and revealed a look of joy. She could tell with a single glance that what her father Monarch Mo Shui desired, what she herself had even reincarnated for transcending. And now, her son Dombua Jade had achieved it. Mother. Dombua Jade revealed a smile. Following that, the smile disappeared. In his heart, there was indeed not much joy, because at this moment, he wanted his father to know. Good. Jing Qiu's face was filled with joy. She had cultivated for much longer than her son and had almost lost all hope of transcending. But seeing her son transcend, she was still filled with boundless joy. This is great. If your father knew, he would definitely be very happy. But father isn't here, Dongbo Jade said. Jing Qiu was slightly startled. She could feel her son's emotions. She also raised her head and looked at the starry sky above Dongbua monarch residence. Outside the starry sky, outside the cosmos, where's her husband? Was he still well? I wonder where father is now and how he is doing. Dongbo Jade said softly. Chapter 831. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying raised his head and looked at the towering star tower. The star tower was emitting a vast pressure that spread out in all directions. Dongbua Shui Ying took a step and entered the spatial passageway at the entrance of the star tower. The space was distorted. This time, when Dongbua Shui Ying was flying, the spatial passageway became even more distorted. When Dongbua Shui Ying flew out, he saw a vast desert world. This was the third level of the star tower. Hua, 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 vast gray light surged out from the depths of the desert, condensing into many figures. In the blink of an eye, there were over 100 gray armored beings standing there. Some of them were tall and sturdy, some were skinny, and some even had 6 arms. Even their weapons were divided into different types. However, the common point was that they were all wearing gray armor, and there was a curved horn embedded on their shoulder armor. The 100 gray armored beings stared at Dongbua Shui Ying. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the opponents in front of him. If there was only one of these gray armored beings, he would be able to deal with it easily. However, the moment there were 10 of them, they would be able to faintly form a formation, causing their strength to rise. The moment there were 100 of them, their strength would rise once again. Furthermore, they possessed evil energy that even the operating laws despised. As long as they were attacked, it would invade their bodies. If it was a small amount, they would be able to expel it quickly. However, if there were too many of them, it would be troublesome. Previously, when he was defeated, it was all thanks to the formation spirit of the Star Tower, helping him to suppress it. Otherwise, the large amount of evil energy would be enough to kill him. This time it's different. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying did not take out his void god weapon this time. Instead, he merely stood on the desert. Go! He pointed with his finger. A large amount of termination energy flew out from his body. Densely packed dark purple termination energy flew out from the surface of his body. Under the control of Dongbua Shui Ying's powerful willpower, he directly activated the power of laws. Every dark purple termination energy flew at high speed and actually turned into many dark purple fishes. There were a total of 1,000 dark purple fishes. In an instant, they covered the sky as they flew towards those gray armored beings. Kill! The bodies of the hundreds of gray armored creatures were surrounded by evil gray energy. Their energy merged into one, and their auras were much stronger. All of them disappeared in an instant, teleporting. Dongbua Shui Ying teleported away as well. Hua, hua, hua. Thousands of dark purple fishes dove into the void and began their attack. As Dongbua Shui Ying had reached the 28th level of Walker's hidden secret, his control over the void was much stronger than these gray-armored creatures. One after another, the dark purple fishes rapidly chased after the gray-armored creatures. These gray-armored creatures coldly defended themselves, but the deep purple fish were extremely agile and fast. They barely managed to block a few, but most of the fish instantly pierced into their bodies. In the past, their bodies were tough, and Dongbua Shui Ying's group attack was useless against them. But this time, their bodies were like broken cloth bags. Shio, shio, shio. The densely packed violet fishes were crazily piercing through their bodies. They were constantly shuttling back and forth. Even when they were exhausted, Shui Ying would continue releasing the termination energy, turning it into violet fishes to replenish their losses. Under the frenzied attacks, these gray-armored life forms let out furious roars, yet they were completely suppressed. Just like that, their injuries worsened. 10 breaths later, They finally dissipated. The gray light fused back into the great earth. We won. Dongbui Shui Ying revealed a grin. He finally won. He got through the third level of Star Pagoda as a void god at the Origin Birth Realm. That was too difficult. Ever since the end of the true god-disciple battle, he had been in closed-door cultivation for 8 billion years. Actually, he had grasped the apocalyptic third sword at 3 billion years ago. He originally wanted to fuse the apocalyptic third sword with his Tao of Ripple to create the 10th volume of Wind Ripple Path. But after trying, he discovered that it was too difficult. Thus, as he pondered over it, he tried simplifying the apocalyptic third sword into a group attack. He was indeed weak in terms of group attacks, and to control a large number of termination energy to unleash a killing move at the same time, the apocalyptic third sword required a huge amount of effort. He could at most let 5 termination energy unleash the apocalyptic third sword at the same time. But this was not enough. There are too few of them, and the enemies could completely defend against them. Even if they attacked one at a time, the energy of those gray-armored creatures could allow the injured to recover rapidly. Thus, he had to kill them all. He had to use a large-scale technique. Thus, he simplified the apocalyptic third sword. Simplifying it was much simpler than fusing the Tao of Ripple. But Dongbui Shui Ying still had to make it easier to unleash it. The larger the scale, the better. This was much harder. He simplified it time after time, using the original concept of the apocalyptic third sword as the foundation. He kept simplifying it, trying his best to make it as simple as possible. Finally, he created the current group attack killing move, Fish Dragon Kill. Time to have a look at the 4th level. The white-robed Dongbui Shui Ying flew into the sky once again. He flew along the huge hole in the sky and entered the 4th level of Star Pagoda. That was a vast mountain world. There was only a single life form wearing a blood-colored armor. This time, Dongbui Shui Ying used his Fish Dragon Kill to attack the other party. He also used his Void God weapon to fight in close combat. Yet he could barely injure the other party. Nevertheless, he was heavily injured by the sinister blood energy. Fortunately, the Star Pagoda Array Spirit helped him to suppress and expel it. I'm still too weak. Dongbui Shui Ying understood. Being a void god at the Origin Birth Realm, it was amazing for him to kill his way to the 3rd level. He was still far from reaching the 4th level. It is time for me to go out and have a walk. Dongbui Shui Ying knew that he had reached a bottleneck, and it was hard for him to improve any further. It would be hard for him to improve even after a few billion years, unless he used a longer period like 10 times the time to comprehend. But time was too extravagant for him. The Palace of Time might be able to accelerate time, but the price was huge. At the Origin Birth Realm, cultivating for 8 billion years was equivalent to 58 million years in the outside world. But he had spent 29,000 contribution points, which was equivalent to 3 Origin World rocks. He did not have many treasures and could not afford to waste time here. Dang, 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 the bell of the Great Void Palace Hall sounded. It reverberated across the entire Great Void Holy Ground. As long as they were in the Great Void Heaven Temple, many Inner Hall elders and hall masters were rushing towards the Great Void Palace Hall. Even many Outer Hall elders and true God disciples who were not qualified to go looked towards the Great Void Palace Hall with bewilderment. What was going on? What major event had happened? Every time the bell of the Great Void Palace Hall rang, it would signify an extremely important event. Within the Great Void Palace Hall, at the highest point, Forefather Tian Yu and Swordmaster were seated side by side, on both sides of the stairs. There were 8 hall masters seated there. On both sides of the Great Palace Hall, there were many Inner Hall elders. At this moment, their gazes landed on a white-robed young man standing at the center of the Great Palace Hall. The white-robed Dongbui Shui Ying stood there. Today, I have gathered everyone here because my Great Void Heaven Temple has a joyous occasion. Forefather Tian Yu chuckled. Dongbui Shui Ying has already gotten through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda. From today onwards, he will be the 39th Inner Hall Elder of my Great Void Heaven Temple. Inner Hall Elder? The higher-ups of the Great Void Heaven Temple present, including the Hall Masters, looked at Dongbua Shui Ying with shock. How long had it been? It had only been 58 million years since the true God-disciple battle. Previously, Dongbua Shui Ying was just a true God ruler. But now, he had become an inner hall elder, even though they could see that Dongbua Shui Ying had cultivated for more than 5 billion years, and they reckoned that he had relied on the Palace of Time. But this was still a short period of time. Furthermore, even though the Great Void Heaven Temple had a rule stating that void gods of the origin birth realm could become an inner hall elder as long as they got through the third level of Star Pagoda within 10 billion years, most cultivators would rely on the Palace of Time to cultivate for a longer period. And without a doubt, the difficulty of getting through the third level at the origin birth realm was much harder than getting through the fifth level of the unity realm. Previously, there was only one inner hall elder in the Great Void Heaven Temple who was at the origin birth realm. It was certain that a monster who could get through the third level at the origin birth realm would be able to easily get through the fifth level once he reached the unity realm. Finally, we have another comrade, Elder Dongbua. They looked at Dongbua Shui Ying. Being a holy ground, the Great Void Heaven Temple only had 38 inner hall elders in the past. Naturally, those who died in battle were not counted. Dongbua Shui Ying, from today onwards, you will be an inner hall elder of my Great Void Heaven Temple. I hope that you will protect the rules of my Great Void Heaven Temple together with other disciples, and protect the only holy ground of my laws and profound mysteries lineage. Forefather Tian Yu smiled as he looked below. At the same time, he waved his hand, causing 3 golden lights to fly towards Dongbua Shui Ying. Dongbua Shui Ying waved his hand before keeping them. He respectfully replied, Dongbua Shui Ying will definitely do his best. End of this chapter, asterisk asterisk. Chapter 832. Many of the true God disciples and outer hall elders in the Great Void Heaven Temple were looking at the majestic light illuminating the entire Great Void holy ground. They were all very curious as to what had happened to gather the upper echelons of the Great Void holy ground. Very quickly, some of them who were well-informed received the news. Dongbua Shui Ying has become an inner hall elder. 1 spread to 10, 10 to 100. At the same time, there were also inner hall elders and hall masters who informed their subordinates or disciples of this news. How long has he been cultivating? He just came to the Great Void Heaven Temple not long ago. It hasn't even been 100 million years since the battle of the true God disciples ended, and he has already become an inner hall elder? As expected of a genius cultivator who came from the same universe as the fiend ancestor and the sword master. In just a short period of time, he immediately transformed into an inner hall elder after reading countless manuals in the Myriad Temple. Awesome, awesome. A void god at the origin birth realm has to pass through the third level of Star Pagoda. It is said that some of the Unity realm outer hall elders need to cultivate for a few days before they can pass the third level. This news shocked many true God disciples and outer palace elders. This was an achievement that they could only look up to. On Fool's Island, some of the Golden Robe disciples also came out of the cave to look in the direction of the Great Void Temple. They were also curious about what had happened, and soon they received the news. Senior Brother Dong Bo has become an inner palace elder? So fast. These Golden Robe disciples had fought with Dongbua Shui Ying before, and they were all shocked and envious at the same time. I've always felt that Senior Brother Dong Bo is quite amazing. He just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple, but his strength is already close to Senior Brother Rain Swordsman's. Junior disciple Sister Qian K chuckled. Not too long later, disciple Brother Dong Bo has become a void god and even an inner hall elder. Sister Qian K, I told you to get closer to Dongbua. Are you regretting it now? The chubby Shui Chen laughed. Junior Sister Qian K's blonde hair draped over her shoulders. She was dressed in a bright yellow robe and looked elegant and graceful. She only smiled when she heard Shui Chen's teasing. Shui Chen turned his head to look at Old Devil Needle and shouted, Old Devil Needle, weren't you very arrogant during the true God disciple battle? Was he pleased? Senior disciple Brother Dong Bo did not place you in his eyes at all. Currently, senior disciple Brother Dong Bo has not only become a void god, he is also an inner hall elder. I think it is impossible for you to become an inner hall elder in this lifetime. Old Devil Needle snorted coldly, then turned around and entered his cave abode. Huh. You can't even say a single word after hearing what I said. Shuechen laughed out. Look, senior apprentice Brother Donghua has come out. Many true God disciples and outer hall elders from all over the great void heaven temple saw this. They saw figures flying out from the entrance of the great void heaven temple. The white-robed Donghua Shueing looked as calm as ever. He was chatting with the other inner hall elders as they flew away. Inner hall elder. When will I ever be able to become an inner hall elder in this lifetime? The chubby Shuechen muttered as he watched from afar. His voice was filled with envy. It was too difficult. It was practically impossible for an origin birth realm expert to get through the third level of Star Pagoda. Passing the fifth floor at the Unity Realm? What do the fifth floors signify? Usually, only primal chaos realm giants could get through the higher sixth floor. Hence, those who could get through the fifth floor were existences who had reached the threshold of the primal chaos realm. Even among the Unity Realm experts, nurtured by the Great Void Heaven Temple, only a very few could do it. The rest could only become outer hall elders. During the days when Donghua Shueing just became an inner hall elder, the other inner hall elders invited him to attend many gatherings. But during the gatherings, Donghua Shueing vaguely felt that something was amiss. These inner hall elders seemed to be hiding something from me. I asked them, yet they said that I would naturally know after passing the fifth floor of Star Pagoda. Donghua Shueing felt puzzled. Other than the gatherings with his good friends, Donghua Shueing had also returned the golden-robed disciple robe and command token. Being an inner hall elder, Forefather Tian, you had bestowed 3 items to him back in the Great Void Palace: the robe, the command token, and the communication talisman, of which the command token that represented his identity as an inner hall elder was also a life-saving treasure. It was even more precious than the Black Gourd. At the same time, after becoming an inner hall elder, he was bestowed with 1,000,000 contribution points. He could exchange for all sorts of precious treasures in the Great Void Heaven Temple that could aid his cultivation. As for obtaining more contribution points, treasures, he would have to accept missions. In the future, be it to refine stronger weapons or other needs, he would have to fight for it himself. Amen? Within the myriad elephant palace, Donghua Shueing was flipping through the books on the 4th floor. One had to become an inner hall elder to be qualified to enter the 4th floor. The 4th floor was much more important. There were large amounts of books placed here, and every single one of them was extremely precious. The original copies of Cosmos ranked absolute arts were placed here. Being an inner hall elder, he could choose any Cosmos ranked absolute art. Meow. A black cat leaped onto the bookshelf and laid down. It looked down at Donghua Shueing. Donghua Shueing, don't be greedy. Every single Cosmos ranked absolute art requires a huge amount of effort to comprehend. Being greedy might instead affect your cultivation. Many thanks. Donghua Shueing chuckled. He discovered it too. There were a total of 9 original Cosmos ranked absolute arts placed here, and 2 of them were related to the Tao of Slaughter. One was the less than 13 apocalyptic swords, and the other was the waning moon sword scripture. As Donghua Shueing flipped through the books, he discovered that there were many contradictions between the 2. He understood that if his realm was sufficiently high, he might be able to accommodate both of them. But he was ultimately at the origin birth realm, and it was too taxing for him to face absolute arts created by Cosmos gods. I'll just focus on these 2. Donghua Shueing picked up another limestone book. The surface of the limestone had ripples on it. He focused on the 2 arts. One was the less than 13 apocalyptic swords, which he had spent a huge amount of effort on. The other was an absolute art related to the Tao of Ripple. It was an absolute art left behind by the primogenitor of the laws and profound mysteries lineage, ancestor Tsong. the plate ripple diagram. Donghua Shui Ying actually wanted to find a cosmos-ranked absolute art related to the Tao of Mirage, but it's a pity that he did not have any. Since ancient times, there were only 3 cultivators who reached the final realm in the laws and profound mysteries lineage: primogenitor ancestor Tsang, forefather Tianyu, and swordmaster. None of them cultivated the Tao of Mirage. Donghua Shui Ying, come over here. A cold voice transmitted directly into the ears of Donghua Shui Ying. Ancestor Devil? Donghua Shui Ying placed down a limestone scripture that had ripples on it before rushing downstairs. The black cat on the bookshelf watched as Donghua Shui Ying left. Its eyes were filled with a strand of expectation. Such a young inner hall elder. It is worth having a good look at him. Punishment Hall. It was situated alone on a huge floating island. This place was emitting a cold, killing aura. Ordinary disciples did not dare to approach this place. Donghua Shui Ying turned into a stream of light and landed on the island. He then rushed towards the punishment hall. Within the punishment hall, there was only a male wearing a luxurious black robe seated cross-legged at the highest point of the punishment hall. His expression was still cold. He merely opened his eyes and looked at Donghua Shui Ying. Ancestor Devil. Donghua Shui Ying immediately bowed after entering. You have to temper yourself outside of cultivation. Where do you plan to go next? Ancestor Devil indifferently asked. I have not thought about it. Donghua Shui Ying replied. Ancestor Devil nodded. My great void heaven temple doesn't have a good relationship with the ancient sacred world and the ancestor mother world. Hence, before you reach the unity realm, it is best for you not to leave the 7-star oceanic sacred world. How about this? My great void heaven temple has constructed 12 primal chaos cities in the 7-star oceanic sacred world to defend the various regions. You can head to one of the cities to defend. Even though there are the incarnations of the Hall Master and other elders there will still be plenty of killing to temper you. All right, I will choose a primal chaos city to defend. Donghua Shui Ying said. Actually, he had already considered this problem. Ancestor Devil was concerned about his matter. It was also because the status of the Swordmaster was too high within the Great Void Heaven Temple. He would not bother about his matters. He could faintly be considered part of Ancestor Devil's faction. Ancestor Devil was too cold and ruthless. In addition, the time he spent in the Great Void Heaven Temple was too short. Hence, the Inner Hall elders were not willing to rely on him. Most of the subordinates of Ancestor Devil were Outer Hall elders. He might be the only Inner Hall elder. Naturally, he had his own principles when doing things. It was impossible for him to break his bottom line. But the Great Void Heaven Temple had strict rules. Ancestor Devil could be considered to have abided by the rules in the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was much better than when he was in his hometown Cosmos. Today, a new chapter would begin. Star. Chapter 833. Even though he had decided to go to a primal chaos city to defend, Donghua Shui Ying wasn't in a rush to leave. After all, he had just become an Inner Hall elder, and he still had many valuable books to study in the 4th level of the Wanxiang Palace. Once he was stationed in a primal chaos city, he might not be back for a long time. Therefore, Donghua Shui Ying stayed in the Great Void Heaven Temple for another 20 million years. Apart from reading books in the Myriad Elephant Palace, he spent most of his time cultivating in the Palace of Time. The Palace of Time had lasted for nearly 2 billion years, and he had used up 10,000 merit points equivalent to an Origin World Stone. This caused some of the Inner Hall elders to say, Elder Donghua, you've been cultivating for a long time. Why do you keep cultivating in the Temple of Time? Becoming an Inner Hall elder will give you 1 million merit points. This is a one-time reward. If you want more in the future, you'll have to fight for it yourself. Resources are precious, and you can't waste them like this. Donghua Shui Ying smiled, but did not explain. Time? He had spent as much time as possible in the Temple of Time. Now, both the 13 Armageddon swords and the plate ripple diagram had reached a bottleneck. The reason why he had spent nearly 2 billion years in the Temple of Time was mainly because he had recently obtained the cosmic level secret art, plate ripple diagram. Fortunately, his current realm was quite high, so he could cultivate it to a very high level in such a short time. Whoosh! Dongbo Shui Ying turned into a stream of light and flew on the floating continent in the center. Soon, he entered an ancient palace that occupied a huge area, the Palace of Chaos. A female void god immediately appeared at the entrance of the primal Chaos Palace Hall to welcome him. Elder Dongbo, this female void god respectfully greeted. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Void gods who could stay within the Great Void Heaven Temple for long periods, other than the Hall Master and the Inner Hall Elders, were those in charge of miscellaneous matters. After all, it was impossible for the Inner Hall Elders to personally handle these matters, right? The Inner Hall Elders were the upper echelons of the sect and were extremely powerful. They disdained such trifling matters. Usually, those who were in charge of trivial matters were the Outer Hall Elders who were valued by the Hall Masters. They also had another name, Inner Hall Deacons. A deacon was a person who did things. The Inner Palace represented that one could live in the Great Void Heaven Temple. As for the Outer Hall Elders, they could only come if they wanted to challenge the Star Pagoda, cultivate in the Palace of Time, or send some new true god disciples over for official business. Normally, they wouldn't be able to stay there because there weren't any abodes left for them in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Within the Great Void Heaven Temple, there were only slightly more than 100 void gods in the Inner Hall. I'm heading to Tinshui City, Dongbo Shuang said. Elder Dongbo, please. The female void god led the way in front. Flying along the winding corridor, they soon saw a huge primal chaos maelstrom passage in front of them. This primal chaos maelstrom passage was guarded by a void god and 2 puppets. This is the entrance to the passage that leads to the celestial water city, the female void god said. Dongbo Shuang nodded and flew towards the chaos whirlpool. Hong, the female void god and the other void god by her side, looked at Dongbo Shuang with envy as he directly entered. Being Inner Hall Deacons, they were only qualified to head to other primal chaos cities when they had official business. Otherwise, they would have to pay a high toll if they wanted to head there for personal matters. But the identity of an Inner Hall Elder was different, and the privileges he had were much higher than them. Elder Dongbo has not been in the Great Void Heaven Temple for long, yet he has become an Inner Hall Elder. The female void god muttered, "How can we compare with him? He has become an Inner Hall Elder at the Origin Birth Realm. That's too formidable. Furthermore, he has Ancestor Devil and Sword Master behind his back." The void god by the side said. He was powerful and had great potential. Furthermore, he had the powerful support of Ancestor Devil and Sword Master. These Inner Hall Deacons could only look up to him. Long, within the primal chaos whirlpool, Dongbo Shuang was constantly flying. This primal chaos whirlpool passage was slightly similar to a cosmos passage. The 12 primal chaos cities constructed by the Great Void Heaven Temple are spread across approximately 1/3 of the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world. The distance between each city is extremely far. Even a primal chaos realm giant would have to spend 100,000 years or so to travel from one primal chaos city to another. Dongbo Shuang sighed. The sacred world was too big. The suppression of the laws was also too strong, making it hard for them to travel. For the sake of increasing their control, the Great Void Heaven Temple did not care about the price to construct 12 fixed primal chaos passages that connected the primal chaos cities and the Great Void Heaven Temple. After flying for the time, taking to brew a cup of tea in the primal chaos passage, Dongbo Shuang finally saw the exit of the passage. Flying out of the primal chaos whirlpool, Dongbo Shuang saw a large group of void gods gathered within the huge palace hall. With a glance, there were more than 1,000 of them, and some of them had exceptionally powerful auras. Greetings, Elder Dongbo. The 2 leading figures with extraordinary auras immediately bowed. The others behind them also bowed in unison. Is it Elder Chun Wu and Elder Qian Yu? Dongbo Shuang chuckled. Elder Chun Wu was a male wearing a tall crown and loose green robe. Elder Qianyu was a white-haired old man who was casually dressed. Being an inner hall elder, Dongbua Shui Ying could obtain a large amount of intelligence through the communication talisman. Naturally, he had obtained intelligence on the Celestial Water City. The Celestial Water City was one of the 12 primal chaos cities. The one with the highest status was the incarnation of Celestial Water Hall Master, who was responsible for guarding the primal chaos city. But given the identity of Celestial Water Hall Master, he would naturally have more important matters to attend to. Hence, his incarnation would usually be in deep sleep. Only during crucial moments would the will of Celestial Water Hall Master descend. Only then would his incarnation wake up. Hence, even though it was said that the incarnation of Celestial Water Hall Master had the highest status on the surface, he rarely appeared. Next was the Society of Elders. The Society of Elders was responsible for handling all sorts of matters within the Celestial Water City. The Society of Elders were all Outer Hall Elders. Those who could become Outer Hall Elders might not be the core elites of the Great Void Heaven Temple, but they had obtained the trust of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, they were sufficiently powerful to the outside world. Beneath the Society of Elders was the Deacon Society. They were all Outer Hall Deacons. Simply speaking, they were thugs. Many void gods who wanted to hug the thick thigh of the Great Void Heaven Temple were willing to become deacons because deacons had contribution points too. In the future, they would have the chance to browse through precious books in exchange for treasures. However, the merit points given to the deacons were very few. Since the Outer Hall Elders were the ones in charge of everything, the Outer Hall Elders would take the majority of the merit points for every mission, and the deacons would split the remaining merit points. Even so, there was still a large group of Outer Hall deacons. The Celestial Water City had a total of 61 Outer Hall Elders, and 2 of them were at the Unity Realm. There were 59 at the Origin Birth Realm. Most Origin Birth Realm Outer Hall Elders had the combat power of an ordinary Unity Realm expert. Of the 2 Unity Realm Outer Hall Elders, Elder Chun Wu had passed through the 4th level of Star Pagoda and was practically unparalleled amongst Unity Realm experts. After all, those heaven-defying existences at the 5th level of Star Pagoda had reached the threshold of the Primal Chaos Realm, and ordinary people could not meet them. As for Elder Qianyu, he had passed through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda and was also at the peak of the Unity Realm. He could easily kill a large group of Unity Realm experts. In the Great Void Heaven Temple, Unity Realm Void gods were usually at the 3rd or 4th level strength. It was too difficult for them to pass through the 5th level, and the moment they did so, they would be able to ascend the heavens with a single step and become an Inner Hall Elder. Elder Dong Bo actually knows our names. It is our honor. The white-haired old man, Elder Qianyu, immediately chuckled. Knowing that Elder Dongbo is stationed in our Celestial Water City, Brother Qianyu and I are relatively happy and have prepared a banquet. I hope that Elder Dongbo will give us some face. Elder Chunwu added, even though it was Dongbua Shui Ying who came. It caused the 2 highest statuses in the Celestial Water City, Elder Chunwu and Elder Qianyu, to have an additional Inner Hall Elder. But the 2 of them were not angry. Instead, they were happy, because they were clear that a monster who could pass through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda at the Origin Birth Realm would be able to reach the 5th level easily the moment he reached the Unity Realm. Furthermore, Dongbua Shui Ying had cultivated for such a short period, and it was likely that he would become a Hall Master in the future. For such an existence to be willing to guard the Celestial Water City for a period of time, it would be a good opportunity for the 2 of them to form a relationship with Dongbua Shui Ying. The level of their combat power was awkward. After all, they had cultivated for trillions of years. Reaching their level, it was hard for them to improve further. They could not even find an opportunity to hug onto a thick thigh. It was highly possible that Dongbua Shui Ying would become a thick thigh in the future. How could these old fellows who had lived for an unknown period miss out on this opportunity? All right, then I'll have to trouble Elder Chun Wu and Elder Qianyu. Dongbua Shui Ying said. It was sufficient for him to treat Elder Chun Wu and Elder Qianyu politely. even if he treated them coldly. Elder Chun Wu and Elder Qian, you could only endure it. As for the other outer hall elders and deacons, they did not need to care too much. Chapter 834. The Celestial Water City occupied an area of 50 million kilometers. Being one of the 12 primal chaos cities protected by the Great Void Heaven Temple, it was extremely safe. Many cultivators lived within. There were even many cities in the wilderness outside the primal chaos city, with many living beings living there. Because being close to the Celestial Water City represented relative safety. The reason why the Celestial Water City was only 50 million kilometers wide was because the primal chaos incarnation could only protect a limited area. Under the law suppression of the sacred world, it was hard for the primal chaos incarnation to save someone from too far away. Dongbua Shui Ying's residence occupied an area of 500 kilometers. It was considered quite extravagant within the Celestial Water City. Time passed. Dongbua Shui would occasionally walk around the Celestial Water City by himself, visiting some restaurants to eat some unique delicacies while listening to the discussions of the surrounding cultivators. The taste is really not bad. Dongbua Shui was drinking wine and eating desserts. He was enjoying himself. The Celestial Water City, spanning 50 million kilometers, seemed very small to powerful cultivators. But in reality, there were still many restaurants that could remain in the Celestial Water City for a long time, and that cultivators were willing to come and eat there. All of them were unique. Dongbua Shui had eaten for 3 months before eating a small portion of the food available in the Celestial Water City. Dang, a sound came from the communication talisman. Dongbua Shui immediately checked. B29 City, west of the city, the Golden Wing Nation King is requesting for help. He is suffering from a large-scale devouring attack by at least 10 ordinary void gods. This was a request for help. Dongbua Shui immediately stood up. He placed a violet metallic piece on the table before leaving the restaurant. The restaurants in the Celestial Water City were usually willing to collect precious materials. At the very least, it would be deity crystals. If it were deity crystals, the amount would be huge, at least 1 million deity crystals. A little attendant in the restaurant saw the violet metallic piece placed by Dongbua Shui on the table with a glance. He immediately walked over and received it with joy. Violet Snow Rock? He is indeed a void god. His actions are extraordinary. Dongbua Shui had once obtained a violet snow rock mineral vein when he killed some void creatures in the 200 over primal chaos lands. Whoosh! Dongbua Shui disappeared from the Tianshui city and executed the void evasion. Now that he had reached the 28th level of the Walker's hidden secret, his movement speed was much faster. In just a few breaths of time, he arrived at the Tianshui city's spatial transfer array. He waited a good while. A team formed by 2 Outer Hall elders and 30 Outer Hall deacons appeared here. They were one of the teams that were on duty and had received orders to head to the Golden Wing Nation. Elder Dongbo, the 2 Outer Hall elders, and the 30 Outer Hall deacons were shocked and hastily bowed respectfully. Dongbua Shui nodded his head. "You are going to the Golden Wing Nation?" Replying to Elder Dongbo, "We are indeed going to the Golden Wing Nation." One of the greenhorned youths said respectfully, "I'll go with you guys. Let's go." Dongbua Shui instructed, "Don't worry. This little bit of merit points is nothing to me. A dignified inner hall elder is going on this kind of mission. As long as I don't split the merit points between us, it will be fine." The 2 Outer Palace elders and a large group of Outer Palace deacons thought to themselves, this was a rather ordinary mission, and the reward was only 1 merit point. This 1 merit point was split between the 2 Outer Palace elders and the large group of Outer Palace deacons who still had to split it further. Don't think that it was a small amount. Over the years, they had been accumulating missions. It wasn't hard for an Outer Hall elder to gather 10,000 merit points. Dongbua Shui and the team entered the teleportation array. Usually, the teleportation array would only be used once a year, unless someone was willing to pay a huge price to use it alone. However, For Dombo Shui, Ying, and the rest to carry out the mission, they had to use the teleportation array immediately. Furthermore, it was free of charge. Under the suppression of the laws of the sacred world, even if the teleportation array was created by the palace lords and hall masters, it could only teleport a certain distance each time. Elder Dongbo, this is the B26 city. They arrived at a city that was just 50,000 kilometers in size. This city was filled with many arrays that were constantly being activated and enveloped the entire city. It had a grand power, and there were even outer hall elders leading their subordinates to guard the city. MN, Dongbo Shuang nodded. The sacred world was too big. The region that the celestial water city could affect was covered by the teleportation cities. Even though there were a total of 100 cities around the celestial water city, it could only affect a small portion of the region. The regions further away were all barren. Even with the wealth of the Great Void Heaven Temple, they were willing to construct a teleportation city that could only cover a small portion of the region. There were even vaster regions that were occupied by primal chaos giants, ruling over a region. Rushing, this was an extremely difficult matter in the sacred world. Weaker cultivators would choose to rush over to the nearest superpower. B26 city, B27 city, B28 city, they finally arrived at the B29 city. Who? Dongbo Shuiying and the group of cultivators flew out of the B29 city. In the distance, it was a vast expanse. Even though there were many people in the sacred world, compared to the vastness of the sacred world, it was still sparsely populated. Most of the living beings would gather under an expert. Everything was for the sake of survival. Elder Dongbo, even though the Golden Wing Nation is within the region controlled by the B29 city and is relatively close, we still have to travel through the void. It will take us about a year or so to reach the Golden Wing Nation. An outer hall elder said, "Our deacon Jiuqi is at the Unity Realm. He is the fastest in the team and will bring us along." Deacon Jiuqi was originally a mutated beast. Now that he had transformed into a human, he had 9 heads. At this moment, he was respectfully bowing. Dongbo Shuang looked at him before nodding. "All right, let's hurry." Reaching the sacred world in a year or so was considered very close. It was difficult to travel through the sacred world. After Deacon Jiuqi bowed respectfully, he began controlling the void to envelop everyone present before directly piercing through the void. Hoo-hoo! They continued moving forward in the void. "Stop!" Dongbo Shuiying instructed. Instantly, the team stopped and appeared in the void. The 2 outer hall elders looked at Dongbo Shuiying with doubt. Deacon Jiuqi was also at a loss. "Let me bring all of you along," Dongbo Shuiying said. As he spoke, he took the initiative to control the void to bring everyone along. So, while piercing through the void, the 2 outer hall elders and the group of outer hall deacons were astonished. It was too fast. This inner hall elder might only be at the origin birth realm, but his void evasion speed was over 10 times faster than Deacon Jiuqi. As expected of an inner hall elder, I thought that since inner hall elders are at the origin birth realm, their void evasion speed would be weak. I didn't expect it to be so terrifying. All of them were speechless. At this moment, Dongbo Shuiying was using the communication token to gather information and find the location of the Golden Wing Nation. Even though he had a rough introduction of the 5 sacred worlds, a small nation like the Golden Wing Nation might be destroyed at any time. Hence, it wasn't recorded in the map. Only by using the communication token would he be able to find a location. Furthermore, in the future when the Golden Wing Nation is destroyed, the information obtained through the communication token would be altered. I was still wondering how fast that Deacon's void evasion would be. It seems like he is only at the standard of an ordinary Unity realm. Dongbo Shuiying thought. As a void walker, his teleportation speed was already comparable to a Unity realm expert when he reached the 21st level of Walker's Hidden Secret. Currently, he was at the 28th level. Amongst those at the Unity realm, his void evasion speed was considered to be extremely powerful. However, there was always someone stronger. Dongbua Shuang knew that there were some heaven-defying Unity realm experts like the Inner Hall Elders who were extremely heaven-defying. They could even tear through time and space to travel. Their speed was much faster than his. I reckon that we will reach the Golden Wing Nation in a month. Dongbua Shuang calculated the distance and made his judgment. Golden Wing Nation. This was a nation that occupied an area of 5 million kilometers. The entire nation was a huge city, and the leader of the nation was a Unity realm expert. But given how big the nation was, those void gods could ambush and devour it. They could even work together to resist against him. This gave the Golden Wing Nation king a huge headache. Currently, the entire Golden Wing Nation was in a state of panic. After all, a large number of cultivators would be devoured from time to time. Who would not panic? Within one of the residences in the Golden Wing Nation, a violet-haired, black-robed male sat there with a mutated beast lying in his bosom. He indifferently said, "The team from the Celestial Water City will rush over in about a year's time. Continue creating panic and make use of this opportunity to spread our ancient sacred religion. Those who believe in our ancient sacred religion will be protected, and the time limit for preaching will be limited to half a year. Half a year later, all of you will hide and not expose yourselves. Wait until the team from the Celestial Water City leaves before continuing to manage the Golden Wing Nation." The violet-haired, black-robed male ordered. Yes, the three void gods by the side solemnly acknowledged. Chapter 835. After the three subordinates left, there was only the purple-haired, black-robed male sitting alone in the courtyard. He was gently caressing the mutated beast's fur in his embrace. This mutated beast was squinting its eyes in comfort. Panic. The more you panic, the better. The purple-haired, black-robed male muttered, "Either perish in panic or become a member of the ancient sacred religion. It is your fortune to be qualified to worship the mighty sacred master." He did not place the Golden Wing King in his eyes at all. Currently, the strength they possessed was completely above the Golden Wing King. If they truly wanted to devour the Golden Wing country, there would not be a single living being left in the country. They did not do so to devour. Instead, they did so to allow more cultivators to become members of the ancient sacred religion. Ooh! On a street with many densely packed mansions, a black figure suddenly appeared in midair and let out ear-piercing laughter, following which a terrifying, devouring force enveloped the mansions below. The cultivators within the mansions, including the mansions themselves, flew up and headed towards that black figure. No, it's a devil. It's the great devouring devil. A large number of living beings within the 5 mansions that were devoured were panicking. They've been living in fear for the past few days, afraid that those devils would devour them one day. However, they were consoling themselves. The Golden Wing country cities were a total of 5 million miles. Under the suppression of a sacred world, the great devil could only devour a small region each time. It should not coincidentally devour them. But the nightmare still descended. No. The mournful voice spread out, causing countless residents in the surroundings to be incomparably terrified. Many of them reported to the Golden Wing Nation's royal family. But in a breath's time, the black figure in the sky had already disappeared. After a while, when the 2 protector elders arrived, they only saw a region where even the bricks had been devoured and the surrounding residents were panicking. Damn it! It escaped too quickly. The 2 protector elders gritted their teeth in anger. A group of devils were hiding in various locations within the Golden Wing country, launching sneak attacks time after time. Every time they devoured a small region, they would immediately leave. In the entire Golden Wing country, there were cultivators being devoured at all times. The entire country was in a state of panic, but no one dared to escape from the Golden Wing country. Because once they escaped, without the protection of the king, they would die even faster. At this time, a mysterious sect was also preaching. As long as one believed in the ancient saint religion, they would receive their protection. Those devils did not dare to offend the ancient sacred cult. The true god rulers, who were considered to be at the top of the Golden Wing Nation, were constantly being preached to. Some stubborn ones were even directly captured and forced to worship the ancient saint religion. If there were truly those who were captured and failed to convert, the only outcome for them would be death. Inside each cage, every single cage had a cultivator locked within, with the weakest being a true god ruler. There were even 2 void gods locked within. Hum hum. The surface of the cage emanated black light. Countless mysterious runes flowed on the cage, and formless sound waves continuously tunneled into the minds of the imprisoned cultivators. The imprisoned cultivators were all in great pain, struggling with great difficulty, and some who were originally struggling in agony gradually revealed a joyful look. They opened their eyes with a smile. There was even a strand of fanaticism in their eyes, and a black god imprint appeared on their forehead before disappearing. "We have another brother. Let him out." The protector by the side immediately released those who had a black god imprint on their forehead. What exactly is this religion? Why is it so frightening that even rulers would submit to it? Within one of the cages, a muscular male was gritting his teeth and holding on. The unseen sound waves were tunneling into his soul, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if a dark maelstrom was about to devour his soul. As long as he did not resist, his soul would sink into it, and he would be able to escape from it. But how could he easily sink into it after becoming a ruler? No, this muscular male was forcefully holding on. This ancient sacred religion is too powerful. They have a secret technique that can trace our soul connection and destroy our other avatars. The more the muscular male thought about it, the more stifled he felt. He was originally a genius within the Golden Wing Nation, and had cultivated for a short period before becoming a ruler. He even planned to set off for the Celestial Water City with his wife in hopes of joining the Great Void Heaven Temple. Who would have thought that he would meet the terrifying ancient sacred religion before setting off? I wonder how Qing Ruo is doing. She is smarter than me, and should not be so unlucky to be captured. The muscular male thought. He gritted his teeth and held on. Clearly, his cultivation heart was much stronger than the surrounding rulers, and he could still hold on. Dongbua Shui Ying brought along 2 Outer Hall elders and a group of Outer Hall deacons as they traveled through the void at high speed. "We are reaching soon," Dongbua Shui Ying ordered. "Everyone, prepare yourselves." Yes, all of them acknowledged. This time, it was the Inner Hall elders who were leading the group, and none of them dared to slack off. They finally entered the region of the Golden Wing Nation. Very soon, Dongbua Shui Ying and a large group of people appeared in the sky above the Golden Wing Nation Royal Palace. There were a total of 33 of them, and all of them were void gods. 2 of them were at the Unity Realm, and they were releasing their auras wantonly. This was also an important place in the Royal Palace. Thus, Golden Wing Nation King immediately discovered them. Following that, he felt great joy. South Golden Wing Nation King brought along 3 protector elders and flew into the sky. He was incomparably respectful. Welcome, special envoy. He was slightly curious. From their attire, he could deduce that 30 of them were deacons, and 2 of them were Outer Hall elders. And who was that white-robed young man who seemed to be leading them? Activate the Golden Wing Nation Protective Array. From now on, forbid anyone from leaving. The moment anyone tries to break through the array and leave, you must immediately report to me. Dongbua Shui Ying ordered. Yes. Golden Wing Nation King immediately acknowledged respectfully. How you dealt with those devils in the past, do the same now. Go. Dongbua Shui Ying ordered. Yes. The 2 Outer Hall elders and 30 Outer Hall deacons acknowledged. Closely following that, they split into 4 teams. Each team was led by either an Outer Hall elder or a Unity Realm deacon. They rushed in all directions and began investigating and chasing after the devils. What identity does this white-robed young man have? It seems everyone listens to his orders. Golden Wing Nation King mumbled inwardly. Dongbua Shui Ying stood above the royal palace. He no longer cared about Golden Wing Nation King. Instead, he directly executed the cosmos-ranked absolute art, the plate ripple diagram. Having cultivated for close to 2 billion years in the Palace Hall of Time, his attainments in the plate ripple diagram were not any weaker than the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. Wang, an unseen ripple spread out in all directions with Dongbua, Shui, Ying at the center. It was extremely hard to investigate in the sacred world, especially when the cunning enemies would deliberately conceal their aura. Hence, some simple scouting techniques were useless. Most ordinary scouting techniques would rely on the law domain. Under the suppression of the sacred world, a Unity Realm expert's law domain could only cover an area of 5,000 kilometers. Even a Primal Chaos Realm giant's law domain would usually cover an area of 500,000 kilometers. This was their normal scouting range, unless they knew an extremely powerful scouting secret technique. And the Cosmos-ranked absolute art, plate ripple diagram, was the only Ripple Dao Cosmos-ranked absolute art in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple. It was also unquestionably the best scouting technique in the Great Void Heaven Temple. What is he doing? Golden Wing Nation King felt puzzled. He did not even sense Dongbua Shui Ying's scouting technique. The unseen ripple seemed to be one entity with the ordinary ripples in the world. It was stealthily probing, covering an area of 250,000 kilometers in an instant. This was also the current limit of what he could probe. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying stood there. He was meticulously investigating the aura of every single living being within the region of 250,000 kilometers. It was simply a dream for anyone to hide from his plate ripple diagram. Chapter 836. There's a void god hiding his aura. Capture him. Shuang directly transmitted over to an outer hall elder. He even sent over a map and an image of the appearance of that void god, who concealed his aura. Dongbua Shui Ying then directly teleported. There were not many void gods in the entire Golden Wing Nation. Any unfamiliar void gods that were not recorded in the intelligence reports would be captured. As for whether he would capture the wrong person, he would then slowly filter through them after capturing all of them. Every single time, he could only scout an area of about 500,000 kilometers. He would then teleport to another region and continue scouting. The entire Golden Wing Nation spanned a total of 5 million kilometers. To search through it once, Dongbua Shui Ying had to execute the plate ripple diagram several hundred times. He had to do it carefully every single time, and it would take him an hour to finish. The rope descended. It directly enveloped the ugly male who had hidden his aura. The ugly male revealed a look of shock when he saw this. He did not care about anything else and immediately turned into a stream of light in an attempt to escape. The rope traversed across the 500 kilometers of void and rapidly wrapped around the ugly male, binding him tightly. The 8 special emissaries from the Celestial Water City watched everything. It is really a void god hiding in the dark. Too formidable. Elder Dongbua is truly formidable. His scouting secret technique is much more profound than ours. The 2 Outer Hall elders and the 30 law enforcers formed a team of special emissaries who were slightly doubtful at first. They did not dare to disobey the orders of the Inner Hall elders. But when they truly acted, they discovered that every single capture was accurate. Within that secret residence, the violet-haired black-robed male was still hugging the mutated beast. Suddenly, his expression changed. Sacred emissary. There's a low-ranked sacred follower who has been captured. It should be a team from the Celestial Water City. This was the first piece of news. The violet-haired black-robed male was in slight disbelief when he received the news. Impossible. We have just acted for a month. Even if Elder Qianyu personally led a team over, it should not be that fast. Unless it is the #1 expert in the Celestial Water City Elder Society, Elder Chun Wu, who personally set off. How could it be? It is impossible for Elder Chun Wu to act for such a small matter. He was clear. The 2 with the highest statuses in the Celestial Water City Elder Society were Elder Chun Wu. He was an unparalleled existence in the Unity Realm. Elder Qianyu was second, but he was also extremely terrifying. However, to reach the Golden Wing Nation in a mere month, only Elder Chun Wu could travel through the void so quickly. However, the number one expert of the Elder Group would not easily leave Tianshui City. Sacred Envoy. There are two low-leveled sacred followers that have been captured. It must be a team from the Celestial Water City, and they have Unity Realm existences. Furthermore, their combined combat power is extremely strong. Saint, a low-level holy disciple, has been captured. A total of 9 low-level holy disciples have been captured. News came one after another. The violet-haired, black-robed male's expression changed. It was too fast. Every single low-ranked sacred disciple was at the void god level, and all of them had the hidden aura's secret technique passed down by the ancient sacred religion. It was hard for them to be discovered if they were to hide. Now that the Heavenly Water City's team had just arrived, the holy disciples that were hiding in various parts of the Golden Wing country were discovered one after another. This was definitely not an ordinary Heavenly Water City's team. Not good. Although he believed that it was impossible for Elder Chun Wu to come, he still understood that it was impossible. Pass down my orders. All holy apostles are to split into 3 teams and leave as soon as possible. The black-robed man ordered. Following that, he gave the order. The holy apostle experts within the Golden Wing Nation began moving, of which 3 holy apostles who knew how to teleport moved separately. They were rapidly teleporting to bring their other comrades so that they could gather as soon as possible. The reason why they split into 3 teams was because there were only 3 holy apostles who knew how to teleport. They split into 3 gathering points and began gathering experts, of which the black-robed male's location was the core gathering point. There were 8 ordinary void gods stationed here, and at this moment, more void gods were willing to come, because following the sacred envoy was the safest during life and death moments. During the night, high up in the sky of the Golden Wing Nation, Donghua Shui Ying stood in midair. He was releasing an unseen ripple and was investigating all movements. Suddenly, a figure tore through the void and passed through the region he was investigating. Amen? Donghua Shui Ying's eyes brightened. Void penetration? He immediately chased after the other party stealthily. This figure tore through the void and arrived at a location. He immediately kept a comrade into his Eden treasure. Following that, he brought another comrade along. They are preparing to escape? Donghua Shui Ying faintly felt that something was amiss because Devour-class devils were usually more selfish. They would not care about their comrades when escaping. They are gathering together and escaping. Aren't they afraid of being wiped out at the same time? Donghua Shui Ying thought. Are they confident? He was following behind silently. Relying on the plate ripple diagram, he was stealthily chasing after the other party. Very soon, the other party entered a residence. The moment he entered, he immediately released the 3 void gods he saved. The moment he checked this residence, it made the eyelids of Donghua Shui Ying twitch, because there were a total of 15 ordinary void gods in this residence, and 2 at the Unity Realm. There were even a large number of rulers trapped in cages. Amen. As Donghua Shui Ying was investigating, the mutated beast in the bosom of the black-robed, violet-haired male suddenly raised its head and let out an ear-piercing goo sound. Not good. The expression of the black-robed male changed greatly. He knew that there was a terrifying enemy scouting in the dark. Being a sacred emissary, he could not detect it at all. This scouting technique was too frightening. Break the array and leave immediately. The black-robed male ordered. Yes. Hong. A dazzling black light immediately shot into the sky from within the residence. It directly charged against the enormous array above the Golden Wing Nation. But because Donghua Shui Ying had given the order, this nation-protecting array was maintained at full force. For a moment, the black-robed male and the others could not break the array. But such a frightening disturbance had alarmed the entire Golden Wing Nation. Not far away, the team led by Deacon Jiuqi discovered this place. He immediately tore through the void and arrived in the blink of an eye. So many. Deacon Jochi was slightly excited. He did not need to investigate and discovered that there was a group of void gods within the residence. These void gods did not conceal their aura. Clearly, they were working together to break the array. Kill, Deacon Jochi ordered. He and the other 7 deacons behind him turned into a dazzling sword light. The enormous sword light charged downwards. The team from the Celestial Water City. At this moment, the black-robed male was leading his subordinates to break the array. After all, this was a nation protecting array that the Golden Wing Nation had operated for many years. It was reinforced with many layers, and with their strength, they would need to attack 8 to 10 times before they could break it. Who would have thought that the team from the Celestial Water City would arrive so quickly? Kill them first. The eyes of the black-robed male immediately turned cold. The dazzling black light clashed with the enormous sword light. Donghua Shui Ying displayed the plate ripple diagram and hid in the dark sky as he watched. He could easily determine the power of the other party's attack and knew that it could not threaten the lives of Deacon Jiuqi and the others. After all, Deacon Jiuqi and the others had grasped hold of the combination array passed down by the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was specially used for combat and was extremely powerful. Deacon Jiuqi was even at the Unity Realm and was not someone to be trifled with. The 2 surges of power clashed. For a moment, it swept across the entire place, causing the walls of the residence to shatter. Many cages appeared. The defenses of the cages were great, and with Donghua Shui Ying protecting them in the dark, those prisoners within the cages were not injured at all. As for the surroundings of the residence, it had been controlled by Donghua Shui Ying, allowing the ripples to dissipate, preventing any innocent lives from being affected. Deacon Jiuqi and the other 7 flew back to the sky. Their expressions were slightly ugly. So powerful. It seems they are stronger than us. And on the other side, the black-robed male led a large group of void gods behind him. He was also looking around him. The ripples from their battle had just charged out of the vicinity of the residence when they were dissipated unknowingly. This made the black-robed male feel pressured. He knew that there was an expert watching everything in the dark. Come out. Just the team under you can't deal against us. The black-robed male sneered. A white-robed young man appeared in the distant sky. Deacon Jiuqi and the other 7 flew over when they saw this. All of them were extremely respectful. Elder Donghua. The white-robed young man looked over. How dare you be so unbridled in the Golden Wing Nation? The black-robed male let out a sigh of relief when he saw this because he could see that the white-robed young man was merely at the origin birth realm. He should be an outer hall elder who should have cultivated some formidable scouting secret technique from the Great Void Heaven Temple. He was not afraid of the origin birth realm. You all must be mistaken. The black-robed male laughed. Those devils are unrelated to me. If I really want to devour them wantonly, do you think the Golden Wing Nation can stop me? Indeed, they can't stop you. The white-robed Donghua Shui Ying nodded. Right. That is why you have wronged me. The black-robed male said, Why don't you let me go? I'm not willing to step into this muddy water. Those devils should die. All of you should die too. Donghua Shui Ying said. The expression of the black-robed male changed. He said with a low voice, Why? Do you really want to continue fighting? The entire Golden Wing Nation might turn into ruins, and the majority of your subordinates would die too. There was silence. Deacon Jiuqi and the others also looked towards Donghua Shui Ying. They could see that this was not an ordinary team of devils. Instead, it was a superpower that was organized. They even vaguely guessed it because they all saw those cages. Should he turn a blind eye, or should he really continue to fight? This time, they were merely dealing against ordinary devils. If they were not strong enough, they would likely end up in a miserable state if they continued fighting. Within the cages, those survivors were also watching this scene. They saw that large group of void gods and the black-robed male. They also saw the white-robed young man and the 8 void gods facing each other in the sky. Unless they are afraid of the ancient sacred religion, they don't dare to act anymore. They were slightly anxious, yet they did not dare to speak. because existences at this level were not people they could speak out of turn. Act. Kill them. Many of these cultivators who were imprisoned were extremely anxious because they knew how big of a calamity the Golden Wing Nation was facing during this period. Everything originated from this group of existences from the ancient sacred religion. You all can continue killing those devils, and we will leave. How about it? The black-robed male said with a smile. Dongbua Ying, who was high in the sky, looked carefully. If I didn't guess wrong, you should be from the ancient sacred religion? The expression of the black-robed male changed. The expressions of his subordinates behind him also changed, including Deacon Jiochi. All of them felt their hearts tightening. He actually said it out loud. If he said it out loud, there would no longer be any leeway. According to the rules of my great void heaven temple, any disciple of the ancient sacred religion must be killed without mercy. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang said. His voice reverberated across the world. Kill! The black-robed male roared. He brought his subordinates and charged into the sky. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang looked downwards. He extended his hand and pointed. Shwa shwa shwa. Thousands of densely packed terminus soldiers transformed into dark purple fish. Thousands of dark purple fish blotted out the sky and covered the earth, directly enveloping the black-robed man and his group of subordinates. Those cultivators in the cages looked upwards. They saw that white-robed young man extending his hand and pointing, causing a large number of violet fishes to envelop the group of experts from the ancient sacred religion with a destructive aura. They could not help but feel excited. Chapter 837. The black-robed male and his group of subordinates were looking at the thousands of violet fishes in terror. Shwa, shwa, shwa. They were like arrows arcing through the sky. They were too fast. Even though they had yet to come into contact, those subordinates could feel their souls trembling. The gap between their realms was too big. These dark purple fishes were able to kill Unity experts like chopping melons and vegetables, let alone them. No, Sacred Master. All of them were in complete despair. A large number of violet fishes had penetrated through their bodies. They contained the profound mysteries of destruction from the Tao of slaughter and easily destroyed their bodies. Almost just a single penetration had caused other than the black-robed male and the mutated beast in his embrace, the other subordinates to turn into nothingness. Only some weapons and other treasures fell down. The black-robed male felt a chill down his spine. He was so frightened that he immediately teleported. He is just an origin birth realm void god. How could he be so strong? As he teleported, there were a total of more than 100 violet fishes that penetrated through the void, chasing after him. Pu. The black-robed male did not have the time to dodge. As he teleported through the void, those violet fishes had already bombarded on his body. Nevertheless, there was a layer of black light on the surface of his body that resisted against those attacks. The black-robed male could feel the power of those violet fishes clashing against the protective godlight. He could not help but feel terrified. Fortunately, it is fortunate that Elder Brother has bestowed me with a protective treasure. Otherwise, I would have died just now. The black-robed male had a savage look on his face. He appeared from nothingness and stared at Dongbua Ying, who was in midair. Oh, he actually didn't die? The white-robed Dongbua Ying was slightly startled as he watched from afar. Go, kill him! The black-robed male threw out the mutated beast in his embrace. He had a savage look on his face. His eyes were filled with fury. He had almost died. After that mutated beast flew out, it immediately let out an ear-piercing gua sound. Its eyes stared at Dongbua Ying, and traces of lightning appeared in the surrounding void. The might of these lightning bolts caused Deacon Jiochi and the other experts to feel fearful. To be able to display such might under the suppression of the laws of the sacred world, this mutated beast strength was considered terrifying even amongst Unity Realm experts. On the other hand, the white-robed Dongbua Ying was still calmly watching everything. The strange beast's body was covered in glossy black fur. Its forehooves suddenly stepped on the void, instantly disappearing and charging over. Set! Dongboi Shuang shouted. Chi chi chi! Countless fine ripples that could be seen by the naked eye tunneled into the void. At the same time, the densely packed dark purple fishes also entered the void and vanished. In just an instant, that mutated beast appeared in the void. It was entangled by countless translucent fine ripples while the densely packed dark purple fishes frantically tunneled into its body, destroying its body. It roared and struggled with all its might, causing many of the fine ripples to collapse. However, at the same time, the fine ripples continued to entangle it, causing it to be unable to use its full strength to defend against the attacks of the termination energy fishes. The termination energy fishes continued to enter its body. Under the encirclement of over 1,000 dark purple fishes, its struggles rapidly weakened. Very soon it calmed down. It had already turned into nothingness, leaving behind only the storage ring and other items. What a powerful mutated beast! It should be at the pinnacle of the Unity realm. Dongboi Shuang thought, if it was before I cultivated the plate ripple diagram, I would probably have to engage in close combat to have a chance of victory. Plate ripple diagram, the ultimate absolute art of the Tao of waves. In terms of domains, it was unquestionably the strongest in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Being the strongest domain-type absolute art, coupled with the fish dragon kill that Dongboi Shuang created for the sake of getting through the third level of Star Pagoda, this area of effect killing technique, coupled with his strongest domain-type absolute art, was miraculously effective. The peak Unity Realm mutated beast was killed just like that. Too terrifying. Is this the strength of Elder Dongboi? Deacon Juchi and the other deacons watched with shock as the countless dark purple fishes tunneled into the mutated beast's body before turning it into nothingness. They could see the strength of the mutated beast. When the mutated beast erupted with its strength, they felt a dense threat. It was only then that they knew that this was the most terrifying mutated beast in the group of experts from the ancient sacred religion. But in the end, Elder Dongboi just stood there. From start to finish, he had been standing in midair, yet he still easily killed his enemies. Even if it is at the origin birth realm, Elder Dongboi is indeed an inner hall elder. If he wants to kill us, he would likely be able to do so in a breath of time. Deacon Jiuqi and the others were both shocked and impressed. The strength of cultivators was that the strong were respected, so they would naturally respect the strong more. In the many cages in the ruins, the cultivators imprisoned in the cages were filled with resentment towards the ancient saint cult. However, they could also sense the terrifying strength of the ancient saint cult's experts. However, the white-robed young man in the sky who did not seem to have a strong aura did not even move. He merely pointed his finger, and countless fishes descended. A large group of experts from the ancient sacred religion was killed. Even a mutated beast that appeared later on, one that was much more terrifying than the Golden Wing Nation King, was easily killed by the white-robed young man. This unfathomable strength made them both excited and shocked. He was too powerful. No, the black-robed male was stunned when he saw this. This mutated beast was sent by his elder brother to follow him. It might look like a pet, but it was actually there to protect him. In terms of strength, it was definitely at the pinnacle of the Unity realm. This mutated beast could easily swallow 100 ordinary Unity realm experts. According to what he knew, in the entire Celestial Water City, only Elder Chun Wu could easily kill this mutated beast. Even if Elder Qian Yu personally made a move, the mutated beast would still be able to resist. But this white-robed young man who was merely at the origin birth realm was actually so terrifying. He is an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The black-robed male had also guessed it. Since he was already so terrifying at the origin birth realm, he must be an inner hall elder. Saying it was slow, a thought flashed in the black-robed male's mind. Following which, he shouted with a mighty voice, "Who are you?" The white-robed Dongboi Shuang looked down at the black-robed male. He looked at the protective black radiance on the surface of the black-robed male's body. He should have something similar to a life-saving talisman. However, once the energy is depleted, he won't be able to hold on any longer. With a thought from Dongbua Shui Ying, the densely packed dark purple fishes immediately turned around and attacked the black-robed male. When the black-robed male saw this, he gritted his teeth in anger. He glared at Dongbua Shui Ying with a ferocious gaze. Wong! A terrifying spatial ripple enveloped him and forcefully teleported him away. So, when the black-robed male was teleported away, he was still looking at Dongbua Shui Ying with killing intent and anger. It disappeared. Dongbua Shui Ying frowned. The spatial ripple had completely disappeared. Furthermore, it had disappeared to an extremely far distance. It had exceeded the range of his senses. I can't believe the biggest fish managed to escape. Dongbua Shui Ying could guess that since this black-robed male was able to command so many subordinates, he should be a sacred envoy of the ancient sacred religion. However, he actually managed to escape. He has a protective treasure and an escape treasure. He is definitely not an ordinary sacred envoy. Dongbua Shui Ying felt slightly vexed. Killing a sacred envoy would reward him with contribution points. The higher the status of the sacred envoy, the greater the reward. Regardless of whether it was for treasures to aid his cultivation or for cultivating in the Palace Hall of Time, he required a huge amount of contribution points. It's a pity that a sacred envoy had escaped, but he had no choice. The other party's protective godlight could not even be shaken by his fish dragon kill. Furthermore, the other party had escaped far beyond the range of his senses. This kind of sacred envoy with a sufficiently high status had formidable survivability too. It was hard to kill him. Who? Dongbua Shui Ying descended. With a wave of his hand, he kept all the treasures of those dead void gods. At the same time, he turned around and ordered, Deacon Jiuqi, protect the surroundings properly. Nobody is allowed to enter or leave the region of this residence ruins. Wait for me to investigate it thoroughly. Yes. Deacon Jiuqi respectfully acknowledged. He knew that this matter involved the ancient sacred religion and could not be careless. Dongbua Shui Ying was instead looking in two other directions. There were battles going on in the other two directions, though it seemed that his side was about to win. Dongbua Shui Ying's figure flashed before leaving through the void. Chapter 838. The members of the ancient sacred religion were split into 3 gathering grounds, of which the black-robed male was at the strongest location and had been dealt with by Dongbua Shui Ying. The other 2 locations were much weaker. They did not even have a single Unity Realm expert. Even though they had the secret collaboration array from the ancient sacred religion, the collaboration array technique passed down by the Great Void Heaven Temple was not weak. Furthermore, the team from the Great Void Heaven Temple was stronger. The reason why they fought until now was because they knew from Dongbua Shui Ying that the enemies were members of the ancient sacred religion. Hence, they planned to capture them alive. Dongbua Shui Ying used the void maneuver to rush towards one of the gathering grounds. Over there, a team from the Celestial Water City was currently trapping 9 void gods from the ancient sacred religion, but it would take some time for them to capture them alive. We can't escape anymore. We can't escape anymore. What should we do? Let's fight. Every one of us who dies counts. For the sake of Sacred Master, kill. These void gods were slightly fanatical, and Dongbua Shui Ying stealthily appeared. He immediately executed the plate ripple diagram. For a moment, many transparent strands appeared from nothingness. They wrapped around the body of every void god, and even permeated into the bodies of the enemies to seal their souls. But these void gods were extremely vigilant. When they felt energy permeating into their bodies, some of them actually chose to self-destruct. Hong hong hong. 6 of the 9 void gods did not hesitate to self-destruct. A terrifying power swept out in all directions before being suppressed by the ripples. Only 3 void gods reacted slightly slower, and their souls were sealed by Dongbua Shui Ying. They are all madmen. Dongbua Shui Ying frowned when he saw this. Ancient sacred religion, ancestor mother religion. Ancient sacred religion, ancestor mother religion. They were two extremely terrifying superpowers that spread across the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void. Behind the ancient sacred religion was a final realm existence, and also an existence that occupied the ancient sacred world, sacred master. And the ancestor mother religion was easy to guess. The ancestor mother religion believed in ancestor mother who occupied the ancestor mother world of the 5 great sacred worlds. These two sects were like cancerous tumors. The moment they entered a religion, they believed in sacred master or ancestor mother. They would be absolutely loyal. For example, after entering the ancient saint cult, the saint masters would surpass everything. For the saint master, they would be willing to die. Even if it was their loved ones, they would not hesitate to kill them for the saint master. He didn't even hesitate to commit suicide. This is a very sad thing. Cultivators who were slightly ambitious would not be willing to join the ancient sacred religion or the ancestor mother religion. But the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion were too formidable. The other 3 great sacred world superpowers did not hesitate. If they discovered the ancient sacred religion or the ancestor mother religion, they would be killed without mercy. Naturally, the cultivation system had little to do with the religion. For instance, the ancient cultivation system could be found everywhere. Even the ancestor mother religion cultivation system would not be affected during the early stages of cultivation. If one felt that something was amiss, he could give up on the ancestor mother religion cultivation system and focus on other systems. But the moment his soul was branded with the ancient sacred imprint or the ancestor mother imprint, he would be doomed. Want to save them? However, there was still a chance of survival under the operation of the laws. For example, the Sacred Lord would take the initiative to retract his imprint, or the heaven-defying ancient cultivators could reverse the flow of time and change the past slightly. The past could be changed. This was a terrifying thing, but it could only be changed to a small extent. The area of influence had to be small, and the weaker the cultivators involved, the better. Regardless, the moment his soul was branded, he would be doomed. It would be hard for cosmos gods to save him. Elder Dombois, the 8 special emissaries from the celestial water city, immediately bowed respectfully. They self-destructed so easily. Dombois Shuang looked at the ruins below. With a wave of his hand, he kept all the treasures left behind after the self-destruction. He even kept those 3 who were captured alive. The battle at the final assembly point had ended. Dombois Shuang and the others had already returned to the ruined residence where the black-robed male was previously at. This was after all the core location of the enemies. Dombois Shuang looked at the 5 void gods who had their strength sealed and were captured alive. Their personal treasures had been taken away. Dombois Shuang immediately ordered, "Lock the 5 of them, along with those void gods we captured at the start. After that, bring them back to the celestial water city." Yes. The 2 outer hall elders and the 30 law enforcers respectfully acknowledged. Golden Wing Nation King added from the side, "This ancient sacred religion actually dares to spread their religion in my Golden Wing Nation. Elder Dombois, if you have any instructions, feel free to tell me. I'll definitely do my best." Dombois Shuang glanced at him. Golden Wing Nation King felt his heart trembling. During this month, he had actually gradually found out that the ancient sacred religion had infiltrated in, but he could only feign ignorance about this matter. The ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion were 2 superpowers that could fight head-on against the other 3 great sacred worlds. They could casually send out some lackeys, and they could easily wipe out their Golden Wing Nation. How would he dare to intervene? As long as the ancient sacred religion was not too arrogant, he would act as though he did not discover anything. Search thoroughly for me. See if you can find any traces of this ancient sacred religion. Dombois Shuang ordered. He casually entered a nearby residence. This residence was comparable to the base of the ancient sacred religion and was naturally luxurious. But currently, the Golden Wing Nation King had arranged for the original owner to temporarily leave, allowing the team of envoys to rest. Dombois Shuang entered the house. With a wave of his hand, he took out all the treasures he obtained from killing the members of the ancient sacred religion. He began refining them and inspecting them thoroughly, searching for any traces. I hope I can find some clues and locate the important base of the ancient sacred religion. Donghua Shuang thought. The base in the Golden Wing Nation was considered a small-scale base. There must be an even more important base. As long as he found it, the greater the contribution points he contributed, the more contribution points he would get. Donghua Shuang did not dislike having too many treasures. Those cultivators who were imprisoned in the cages were released one by one. They were interrogated. These cultivators were relatively famous in the Golden Wing Nation. In addition, they had suffered greatly in the cages. Hence, they were relatively trustworthy. After the interrogation, they were released one by one. But they could not leave temporarily. They had to stay in the Golden Wing Nation Royal Palace and wait for a more thorough investigation. Too formidable. He is addressed as Elder Donghua. Even our king has to be careful in front of him. He is so frighteningly formidable. Shwa, shwa, shwa. A dense number of fishes flew down, killing so many void gods. Those cultivators who were released felt much more relaxed. Since they could not leave temporarily, they were discussing in groups of 2s and 3s, of which there was a muscular male who was currently looking around. His face was filled with anxiety. Qing Ruo isn't around. She should not have been caught. Because the communication items had been taken away previously, he could not send out any messages. Wang. The muscular male had regained his strength after being released from the seal. At this moment, he began executing his secret technique. He was a genius from the Golden Wing Nation, and his wife was even more dazzling than him. Other than tempering themselves, the two of them had a fortuitous encounter too. That fortuitous encounter had transformed their souls, and at the same time, formed a faint connection between their souls. He executed his secret technique and tried his best to sense with his soul. Not good. The expression of the muscular male changed. He relied on his soul to sense it. He could sense that the soul of his wife was very far away from here. She was very far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Furthermore, she was rushing over at an extremely fast speed. With such a fast speed, she must have penetrated through the void, and his wife was a ruler. She could not penetrate through the void, unless the muscular male immediately guessed it. His expression could not help but change. He immediately walked towards the 2 outer hall elders who seemed to be leading the group of void gods in the Celestial Water City. He respectfully said to one of them, "Senior, I wish to meet Elder Donghua." "You wish to meet Elder Donghua?" The 2 outer hall elders looked at this muscular male who had just been rescued. Not everyone is qualified to meet Elder Donghua. What a joke. That was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He had an extremely high status in the 5 great sacred worlds. Even primal chaos realm giants had to treat him seriously. It's related to the ancient sacred religion. The muscular male transmitted. The 2 outer hall elders exchanged glances. "I'll bring him to meet Elder Donghua. You follow me." The outer hall elder with a single jade-green horn on his head said. He brought the muscular male and rushed over to meet Donghua Shuang. He was not worried. A true god ruler who did not have any treasures or weapons would not pose any threat to him. Within the residence by the side, within the hall, there was a huge pile of items placed on the ground. White-robed Donghua Shuang was currently seated by the side. Many items were floating in front of him. He was carefully checking through them, yet he frowned. Clearly, he did not find anything. The base where the ancient sacred religion infiltrated was an extremely secretive place. It would not be easily leaked out. Amen? Donghua Shuang looked outside the hall. Outside the hall, the single-horned outer hall elder brought a muscular male in. That muscular male directly said, "Elder Donghua, I know where that leader of the ancient sacred religion, the black-robed man, is at." The eyes of Donghua Shuang brightened. Chapter 839. The single-horned outer hall elder looked at the muscular man with dissatisfaction. This puny ruler actually spoke before he even spoke. Reporting to Elder Donghua, he is called Lei Chun. He is one of the cultivators that was captured and imprisoned by the ancient saint religion. He is a rather famous genius cultivator in the Golden Wing Nation. His wife's innate talent is above his. The single-horned outer hall elder said respectfully. He was in charge of the investigation previously. With his incredible memory, he naturally remembered everything clearly. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded his head and looked at the muscular true god ruler. A genius cultivator? His wife's innate talent was above his? Do you know where the saint envoy of the ancient saint religion is? Shui Ying asked. Are you confident? Currently, he is fleeing in panic. As for where he is fleeing to, I'm afraid other than himself, no one else can be sure. I am more than 90% confident. The muscular man Lei Chen replied. Speak clearly. Dongbua Shuang said. The muscular man Lei Chen looked at the white-robed young man and couldn't help but feel nervous and anxious. He was clear that with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to save his wife. As for the ancient saint religion, it was rumored that it was related to the supreme saint master of the ancient saint world. In front of such a huge and terrifying power, he was just a puny ant. Let alone him, even the Golden Wing Nation king, who was thousands of times stronger, would be an ant. The white-robed young man in front of him had an extremely high status. He was an expert from the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even the other special envoys of the Celestial Water City and the Golden Wing Nation king were very respectful to him. Only he would be able to save his wife. He couldn't miss this opportunity. In order to save his wife, he was willing to do anything. Elder Dongbua, Lei Chan said respectfully, my wife Qing Ruo and I have been cultivating step by step. We have experienced many dangers, but we also had fortuitous encounters. One of the fortuitous encounters caused my wife and my soul to undergo a transformation. Furthermore, we could faintly sense each other's soul. If we were to execute a secret technique to sense each other, the distance we could sense each other would be extremely far. When I was rescued by Elder Dong Bo from the ancient sacred cult, I immediately sensed my wife's location after the seal was lifted and my strength recovered. However, I discovered that my wife was actually extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Furthermore, it was moving forward at an extremely fast speed. With such a terrifying speed, it must be shuttling through the void. Qing Ruo is only a ruler, so there's no way she can teleport. She must have been taken away by some other expert. Golden Wing Nation, who would take her away, and it could even teleport. Furthermore, it is extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Lei Chen said, I can only think of one possibility. I was captured. My wife, Qin Ruo's talent is above mine, and she is famous in the Golden Wing Nation. I'm afraid that the ancient sacred cult did not let her off and captured her as well. Moreover, because my wife is highly valued by that sacred emissary, she might be imprisoned in that sacred emissary's Eden. After saying that, Lei Chen looked at Dongbua Shuang. He was nervous. Whether to rescue her or not, it would depend on the decision of this mysterious Great Void Heaven Temple Elder Dongbo. Would he agree? If he were to rescue her, would he face danger? Would this Elder Dong Bo be willing to take the risk? It is extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Shuttling through the void, Dongbua Shui Ying was pondering. In the entire Golden Wing Nation, the number of people that could teleport could be counted with one's fingers. The rest had either died in battle or were still in the Golden Wing Nation. Only the black-robed man had escaped. To appear at a location that was extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation, it was extremely hard to travel through the void normally. This was because he had spent a month rushing over from B-29 City. That black-robed man had executed an ultra-long distance void teleportation to escape. This was also in line with this deduction. Furthermore, when Lei Chun sensed the black-robed man was still rushing over. In addition, the ancient sacred cult placed great importance on those who were extremely strong or talented. They wanted to make them believe in the ancient sacred cult. Hence, that sacred emissary had captured the talented Qing Ruo and personally controlled her. This was normal. Oh, Dongbua Shuang looked at Lei Chan and chuckled. But how do I know what you said is true? None of what I said is false. Lei Chun became anxious. Elder Dong Bo, his original anxious expression and surging emotions suddenly changed. Because Dongbua Shui Ying had stealthily lured his soul into the illusory realm. He had long grasped the Mirage law system, and his attainments in this aspect were relatively profound. If it were some of the more foolish void, god-level void creatures, they would fall for it, much less Lei Chun, who was merely a ruler. He had unknowingly fallen into it. Let me ask you, you and your wife. Dongbua Shui Ying continued. The single-horned outer hall elder felt slightly puzzled. Following that, he discovered with shock that this ruler called Lei Chun was currently answering him numbly. After a moment, Lei Chun felt his soul jolting. He had completely woken up, but he still felt vague about what had happened. He looked at this white-robed young man in front of him with slight shock. He was not too clear what had happened, but he understood one point. This white-robed young man must have done something to him. But at this moment, for the sake of saving his wife, he did not have any complaints. All right, you should first refine an avatar. After that, we will immediately set off. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang said. No need. We have to hurry. Lei Chun anxiously replied. Chasing after them requires time. We don't lack this bit of time. Dongbua Shuang frowned and roared, Go. Lei Chun was anxious, yet he could only accept the order and retreat. Following that, he used his fastest speed to nurture a fleshy embryo and split his soul into two. Furthermore, time was accelerated. Just half an hour later, he was brought by the single-horned outer hall elder to meet Dongbua Shuang. I want to chase after the ancient sacred religion. Dongbua Shuang looked at the single-horned outer hall elder and instructed, You guys will settle the matters here. After which, we will return to Celestial Water City. Yes. Although the single-horned outer hall elder was slightly worried, he did not dare to refute and immediately complied. Let's go. Dongbua Shui Ying brought Lei Chun and set off through the night. In the night sky, the moon of the sacred world hung high. Dongbua Shui Ying brought Lei Chun to the sky above the Golden Wing Country. The Golden Wing Country city was still enveloped by a nation protecting array. Where's that black-robed sacred emissary? How far is he roughly from here? Dongbua Shui Ying asked. Reporting to Elder Dongbua, Lei Chun waved his hand, and a huge map appeared in front of him. On the map, a region was marked out. He said softly, Because it is too far away, my senses are slightly blurry. I can only confirm that it is roughly this region. Your senses are too blurry. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head. This region was truly huge. But Dongbua Shui Ying was still slightly startled. He was startled because the black-robed sacred emissary had teleported to such a great distance. His life-saving teleportation treasure seems to be more effective than the teleportation talisman of my great void heaven temple. Dongbua Shui Ying thought. As long as the distance is close, my senses will be clearer. Lei Chun said. Go. Dongbua Shui Ying brought him along as they traveled through the void. Even though he still had the teleportation talisman from when he was a golden-robed disciple, the teleportation distance was too great. The laws and profound mysteries involved were beyond what he could control. The teleportation talisman should have been personally refined by a primal chaos giant or even forefather Tianyu. Once the power was depleted, it would explode. The moment the energy was depleted, the talisman would have to be replenished naturally. Even though he had another treasure that was more suitable for teleportation, he was not in a rush to use it unless it was necessary. After all, his goal was to track the black-robed sacred emissary and find the important base of the ancient sacred religion. He chased along the way. Other than using the teleportation treasure at the start, the black-robed sacred emissary spent the rest of his time traveling through the void. Being a powerful cultivator, he did not care about the flow of time. He even spent more than 600 years not going to the nearest B29 city. Instead, he deliberately took a detour to the relatively further A29 city. The guards of A29 city did not know that this black-robed man was from the ancient sacred religion. Naturally, they let him pass. Dongbua Shui Ying was afraid that something might happen. He was forced to use his teleportation treasure to chase after the black-robed man to a 29 city. Relying on the teleportation city, he finally arrived at a 35 city. After that, he traveled through the void for another 19 years. We have arrived. The black-robed, sacred emissary looked at an unremarkable black city that appeared in the distance. The entire city occupied an area of just 50,000 kilometers. It seemed to be a small superpower, but in reality, this was an important base of the ancient sacred religion. This time, all my subordinates have died. The black-robed sacred emissary was slightly vexed. Over the long years, I have completed many missions and was about to become a high sacred emissary. Who would have thought that all my subordinates have died this time? I wonder how long I will have to wait before I can become a high sacred emissary. There was a strict hierarchy within the ancient sacred religion. It was extremely difficult to rise by one rank. That elder Dongwa? The black-robed sacred emissary's eyes were filled with rage. But he knew that although the ancient sacred world was stronger than the Great Void Heaven Temple, this was the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. But this was the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. If he truly wanted to fight, he could not win against that elder Dongbo. Hence, he could only endure. South, the black-robed sacred emissary transformed into a beam of light and flew into the Black City. After the time, taking to brew a cup of tea, two figures appeared in the night sky. They were none other than Dongbua, Shui Ying, and Lei Chun. After more than 600 years of tracking, I have finally found this place. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the Black City in the distance and revealed a smile. Chapter 840. Dongbua Shui Ying knew that the ancient sacred religion had a total of 90 important strongholds in the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Based on the fact that the Great Void Heaven Temple's territory took up 1/3 of the 7-star oceanic sacred world, there should be around 30 strongholds within the Great Void Heaven Temple's territory. These strongholds were of the same status, and all of them were directly connected to the ancient sacred world. The members of a stronghold would not know anything about another stronghold. Therefore, even if he could destroy one stronghold, he would not be able to destroy all of them. However, there were only 30 strongholds in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple's territory. If he could destroy one of them, it would definitely be a huge contribution. Dongbua Shui Ying glanced at Lei Chun. It's all thanks to him. He and his wife can actually sense each other's soul. Elder Dongbua, please save my wife. I can sense that my wife's soul is still sealed. She is sealed, so she definitely did not submit. Lei Chun said. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded his head. That black-robed sacred envoy had been escaping all the way, so he most likely did not have the time to control the people he had imprisoned. We might have to fight next. You can stay in my Eden for now. As Dongbua Shui Ying spoke, he waved his hand and kept Lei Chun. Lei Chun also obediently allowed himself to be kept. At this moment, he could only hope that this elder Dongbua would be able to save his wife. This was the only thing he could do. After all, he was too weak. He would not be able to participate in a battle of that level. After keeping Lei Chun, Dongbua Shui Ying cast his gaze towards the Black City below. Within the Black City, in a dark hall, a man and a woman were sitting opposite each other. Both of them were not normal humans. The man's entire body was covered in a layer of frost armor, and his face was covered with white scales. As for the woman, she was a 6-armed, alluring woman. Both of their auras naturally filled the entire hall. Sacred Envoy Qi Yun is about to arrive. The man with the frost armor held onto a wine cup. The wine cup was filled with amber-like wine, and the fragrance of the wine permeated the air. Sacred Envoy Qi Yun is really miserable this time. The 6-armed woman's eyes flashed with lightning. He's worked hard to lead his subordinates to preach, and his elder brother even gave him a mutant beast to help him. He's accumulated quite a bit of merit in these long days, and he's not far from being promoted to High Holy Envoy. But this time, he had lost all of his men. It was one thing for the mutated beast to die in battle. After all, it wasn't his subordinate. However, the other holy disciples had all been groomed to be suitable for preaching. Now that they were all dead, his credit was greatly reduced. I really don't know how long it will take for him to become a high divine envoy, and he will also need his brother's help. Don't rejoice in his misfortune. In the end, he is still Saint Wang Ming's younger brother, the man with the frost aura said. Humph, the six-armed alluring woman laughed. The rules of the ancient saint cult were very strict. In order to become a superior sacred envoy, one's strength had to reach the peak of the unity realm. Of course, there was another way to ascend within the sect, to accumulate enough merits. The black-robed male was indeed slightly weak, but with the help of his elder brother, he had many formidable helpers and was about to become a high divine envoy. Furthermore, after he became a high divine envoy, with the help of his elder brother, he would definitely have more authority than most high divine envoys and would obtain more benefits. Even though the frost male and the six-armed alluring woman felt jealous, they could only watch as everything happened. They did not dare to sabotage in the dark. They could only watch as the black-robed male continued to accumulate merits. Now that they had failed, the two of them felt great in their hearts, but they were delighted inwardly. They did not dare to do so openly. Saint Wang Ming, what was a saint? In the ancient sacred cult, only primal chaos giants were qualified to be called saints. Naturally, those Unity Realm experts who could fight against primal chaos realm experts were qualified to be called saints. Using the Star Pagoda to judge, they had to at least reach the 6th level of Star Pagoda. Even the Great Void Heaven Temple did not have a single Unity Realm expert who could get through the 6th level of Star Pagoda. Even the Great Void Heaven Temple could not do it despite being very good at fighting against those of a higher level. One could see that it was unfathomable for a Unity Realm expert to fight against even the weakest Primal Chaos Realm expert. Who? A figure flew into the palace hall from afar. It was that black-robed male. His expression was currently ugly. The frost male and six-armed woman immediately stood up to welcome him. Younger brother Chi-yun. The frost male walked over. His face that was covered in white scales was filled with heartache. Why are you so unlucky? Younger brother Chi-yun, you are so close to becoming a high, sacred envoy, yet you have suffered such a huge loss. The six-armed woman added, Brother Chi-yun, don't be anxious. This time, we have suffered a huge loss, and our merits have been reduced by a lot. But we could take it slow. This elder sister will definitely do her best to help you. The two of them were sneering behind the other party's back. They were relatively carefree, but at this moment, they were wholeheartedly working for this black-robed male. That damnable elder Dongbo, the black-robed male, directly sat down. He picked up the wine flask beside him and started drinking. After drinking a mouthful of pain, he suddenly placed the flask down. The flask smashed onto the table with a pump. He gritted his teeth. It is this elder Dongbo who spoiled my plans. I have just been on the mission for a month, and he actually arrived. The frost male sat by the side and said, I have already investigated. The religion has also spread the information that this elder Dongbo is called Dongbua Shuang. It is said that he is an amazing genius who came from a certain cosmos in the primal chaos void. He became a golden-robed disciple of the great void heaven temple in that cosmos. It is said that he came from the same cosmos as Ancestor Devil and Swordmaster. Ancestor Devil and Swordmaster? The black-robed male snorted inwardly. Ancestor Devil was the hall master of the great void heaven temple. Swordmaster was even one of the final realm existences. Furthermore, he came to the great void heaven temple for less than 100 million years before becoming a void god. Furthermore, he passed through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda and became an inner hall elder. The frost male helplessly said, an origin birth realm inner hall elder would definitely be treated as a treasure by the great void heaven temple. Furthermore, this is the territory of the great void heaven temple. We can't win against him. It is normal for the incarnations of Forefather Tian Yu and Swordmaster to descend at the crucial moment. The black-robed male felt anxious. He knew that he could not win against the other party in terms of direct combat strength. He could not win against the supporting force behind them either. Even though the ancient sacred religion was strong, this was ultimately the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. They could only develop in the dark and could not fight against the other party directly. He was furious and anxious, but he could only endure. Wait, there will be a day, there will be a day. The black-robed male thought. He could only roar in his heart. He did not say it out because he was afraid of being ridiculed by his companions. Even he knew that he no longer had the chance to take revenge. Younger brother Yin, you should rest first. The matter of spreading the religion isn't urgent. The frost male said. The black-robed male nodded. He had to contact his elder brother too, because the mutated beast had died in battle, and he did not have any powerful subordinates. It was hard for him to spread the religion just by relying on some sacred disciples. They had to have sufficiently powerful experts before the efficiency of spreading the religion could be greatly increased. Come, accompany me for a drink. The black-robed male, Ying, said. All right, come, big sister has plenty of good wine. The two of them were clearly the highest authority in this base. They were both upper sacred emissaries, yet they were polite to a lower sacred emissary and did not dare to offend him. They had just drunk for a short while. The expression of the six-armed girl changed slightly. She transmitted, "Be careful. The warning array has discovered a void god and a true god ruler appearing outside the city. They are currently spying on us in the dark. Oh, that true god ruler has been kept into his Eden. His appearance should be that Elder Dong Bo whom we investigated previously. Elder Dong Bo, that origin birth realm inner hall elder?" The expression of the frost male changed. The eyes of the black-robed male were filled with killing intent. Even though Dongbua Shui Ying was vigilant, he had too little contact with the ancient sacred religion. This was ultimately the #1 superpower in the 5 great sacred worlds. Sacred Master was an existence that could become enemies with almost all final realm existences. At the moment he arrived, he had been discovered by the warning array of this black city. Chapter 841. The six-armed woman and the frost man had ugly expressions. They looked at the black-robed man angrily. Our encampment is extremely important. There are only 90 encampments in the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world. It is the core of our mission. The frost man transmitted solemnly. Now that the inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple has arrived outside our encampment, this encampment has already been exposed. The only thing we can do now is to minimize our losses. The black-robed man gritted his teeth and transmitted solemnly. This has nothing to do with me. The first thing he wanted to do was push the blame away. The six-armed woman and the frost man glanced at him but did not say anything, because the final punishment would be decided by the upper echelons of the ancient sacred religion. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying, had provoked the inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, Dongbua Shui, when he was preaching in the Golden Wing Nation. Now that sacred emissary Ying had just returned to the encampment, Dongbua Shui had already arrived. As long as one was not a fool, they could guess that Dongbua Shui was following them in the dark. Perhaps he had left some sort of tracking imprint on sacred emissary Ying. Immediately lead the other sacred emissaries to the underground sacred palace. The frost man ordered, "Move the sacred master sculpture as fast as possible. Once it's done, immediately teleport away." Yes. The six-armed woman and the black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying, acknowledged. Why was there only 90 encampments in the vast 7-star oceanic sacred world? It was because every encampment required a sacred master sculpture. No matter if it was to communicate with the distant ancient sacred world or to control many cultivators, they required the help of the sacred master sculpture. In the Golden Wing Nation, controlling the cultivators was a low-level method. It could only control the weaker cultivators. Even true god rulers could resist it. Only a few with weak spirit cultivation could not resist it. And the moment they arrived in front of the sacred master sculpture, by borrowing the power of the sacred master sculpture, there were some extremely strong, true God rulers with strong spirit cultivation. Even origin birth realm and unity realm existences with weaker minds could generally be forcefully controlled. By branding their souls, they would be absolutely loyal to the sacred master. Even though Dongbua Shuang is here, I'm afraid he doesn't dare to be absolutely certain that this is an important base of our ancient saint religion, the cold-looking man said. I'll go deal with him and try my best to delay for time. If we can kill him, it will be a great merit. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Qiyun, said. Kill an inner hall elder? Their life-saving methods are very powerful. The man with the frost aura was rather furious. Even if they succeeded in moving the sacred leader statue, they would still have to give up this base. The ancient saint cult would still punish them. If they couldn't even protect the sacred leader's statue, the punishment would be terrifying. Whoosh! The frost man immediately flew out of the dark hall. The six-armed woman and the black-robed divine emissary band, Yin, immediately took action. They even sent voice transmissions to the other divine emissaries, telling them to quickly head to the underground holy palace. They had to move the sacred leader statue as soon as possible. White-robed Dongbua Shui Ying stood in the air and stared at the black city in front of him. He directly unleashed his plate ripple diagram, sending out formless ripples. However, the black city was actually blocked by the revolving arrays. Who dares to invade my black mountain city? A figure flew out. It was that Frostman. He was emitting a grand aura, causing the surrounding void to be filled with ice and snow. This Frostman frowned and roared out, "Who are you?" White-robed Dongbua Shuang was too lazy to delay for time. He was clear that the most important thing in the base of the ancient sacred religion was the sacred leader statue. Even though it would take some time to move the sacred leader statue, it wouldn't take too long. Hong! Dongbua Shuang extended his right hand, causing a command token to appear. It was the identity token of an inner hall elder. The command token was grand and emitting a terrifying aura. There was even a towering and dazzling illusory palace that appeared behind Dongbua Shuang. This illusory aura was filled with a suppressive force. It was comparable to the aura of primal chaos experts. This was the illusory image of the great void heaven temple. It could not be faked. I am an inner hall elder of the great void heaven temple. Dongbua Shuang directly roared out, "Hurry up and remove the array of your Black Mountain city. If anyone disobeys, it is equivalent to disobeying my great void heaven temple. All of you will be treated as members of the ancient sacred religion and will be killed without mercy." An inner hall elder of the great void heaven temple? The Frostman paled when he saw that. He hurriedly replied respectfully, "This Sir Elder, I am currently cultivating in seclusion here." "Why, Sir Elder? Don't speak nonsense." Dongbua Shuang frowned. His eyebrows were like the edge of a sword. He did not want to let this Frostman drag for more time. "Hurry up and remove the array. I am currently refining a precious treasure. My countless years of hard work are all concentrated in this cauldron. I can't." The Frostman still wanted to delay. "Kill." A cold light flashed in the eyes of Dongbua Shuang. Even though he did not have absolute confidence that this black city was an important base of the ancient sacred religion, he was 70 to 80% confident. Furthermore, that black-robed man had entered previously. Now that he had revealed his identity, the black-robed man did not allow him to investigate. There must be a problem. Xiao Xiao Xiao, accompanied by Dongbua Shuiying's furious roar, a dense number of 300 deep violet fishes flew out from Dongbua Shuiying's body. All of them charged towards the Frostman. At the same time, countless translucent ripples wrapped around the Frostman. The Frostman shouted, "Sir Elder, I am refining a precious treasure. My incarnation is currently in front of the cauldron. I cannot be affected." As he shouted, the Frostman immediately resisted. A crystal-clear armor condensed on the surface of his body. At the same time, an ice sword appeared in his hands. Even though his body was being wrapped by the countless ripples, he still instantly brandished his sword. Shwa! The space started to freeze, forming a restriction that affected the surrounding ripples. It also affected the incoming terminus soldiers, causing their speed to decrease greatly. At the same time, a dazzling sword light shot towards the incoming terminus soldiers. 300 deep violet fishes surged forth like a school of fishes. Instantly, they clashed with the sword light of the ice sword. Many of the terminus soldiers that were already slowed down were destroyed by the sword light. However, there were 4 deep violet fishes whose aura suddenly surged. Shio! 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 It was as though 4 mystical dragons streaked across the sky and directly attacked the Frost Man. Even though the Frost Man's speed was greatly affected by the ripples, he still wielded the ice sword in his hands brazenly and blocked the extremely ferocious 4 mystical dragon-like terminus soldiers. These 4 terminus soldiers were executing the 3rd sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords. This was also the reason why there were only 300 fishes. It was because if he executed too many terminus soldiers, it would be too taxing on his mental strength. He would not be able to execute the apocalyptic 3rd sword easily. Bang, 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 bang. The cold sword light refracted time and time again. The Frostman's sword light was very strange. It actually blocked the attacks of 4 terminus soldiers at the same time. Even though the other terminus soldiers also surrounded him, they were unable to break through his ice armor. They only affected his speed. Occasionally, he would be hit by the apocalyptic 3rd sword, and a hole would appear on his body. Suddenly, the densely packed fishes all disappeared. All that was left were the 4 mystical dragon-like terminus soldiers attacking him. In the distance, Dongbua Shui-Ying had also disappeared into thin air. Shua! In an instant, Dongbua Shui-Ying appeared by the Frost Man's side and thrusted his spear furiously. Teleportation. The Frost Man laughed coldly. Without the influence of so many fishes, he was still able to block Dongbua Shui-Ying's spear while blocking the 4 terminus soldiers. Boom! At the moment when he blocked the spear, another spear thrusted out from the void. It was too sudden, because he was already dealing with the 4 terminus soldiers and had to use all his strength to block the spear. He did not have enough time to block the last spear that appeared at such a close distance. However, the Frost Man still calmly used his body to block the spear because he had previously blocked the apocalyptic 3rd sword's terminus soldiers. Boom! The spear pierced into the Frost Man's body, causing his expression to change. Wrong. He was ridiculously wrong. This spear was a high-grade void divine weapon. The spearhead was covered with terminus soldiers. Furthermore, the terrifying energy contained within the 28th level of Walker's hidden secret was completely imbued into this spear, allowing the apocalyptic 3rd sword to be unleashed. It was much stronger than the apocalyptic 3rd sword executed purely with the terminus soldiers. His body was instantly torn apart, and the destructive energy engulfed his body. Pung, pung, pung. Because his body was torn apart, Dongbua Shui-Ying's spear immediately emitted many strands of terminus soldiers. Many terminus soldiers' fishes were crazily destroying his body. Dongbua Shui-Ying also thrusted out his spear 3 times at lightning speed. Just after the 3rd spear, the shattered body of the Frost Man dissipated. He was still filled with disbelief and despair. He did not believe that he would lose to an Origin Birth Realm Void God. Even if he was an Inner Hall Elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple, he was only at the Origin Birth Realm. Dongbua Shui-Ying watched coldly at everything. He had gotten through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda without cultivating the plate ripple diagram. Currently, with the plate ripple diagram restricting the other party could only unleash part of his strength. It was normal for him to die. Saying it was slow, but in reality, the battle between Dongbua Shui-Ying and the Frost Man was extremely fast. First, it was a group attack followed by close combat. Not even a breath of time had passed before the other party died. Not good. The expression of the 6-armed girl who was already in the sacred palace hall beneath the Black City changed greatly. She relied on the warning array to see that the Frost Man had died. Chapter 842. The underground sanctum was very spacious. There was a towering statue in the center of the temple. Around it, the walls of the temple actually had a total of 8 statue phantoms surrounding the statue in the center. As long as one entered the underground sacred hall, there would be towering statues in all directions. There would be an invisible power permeating the entire sacred hall. At this moment, dozens of holy envoys were gathered here. They were rapidly dismantling the holy temple in order to allow the sacred Lord statue to unleash enough power to control even stronger cultivators. The sacred Lord statue had to be extremely powerful. That was why the holy temple had to be built to fuse with it. Now, it had to be dismantled, or else it would be impossible to take away the holy Lord statue. The first city lord is dead. The group of holy envoys were all a little shocked. It was too fast. The first city lord died too fast. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Ying, glanced at the 6-armed lady beside him and snorted coldly. If you had gone to deal with that Dongbua Ying of the Great Void Heaven Temple, you wouldn't have been defeated so quickly even if you had joined hands. The 6-armed woman was truly furious. For so many years, he had been tolerating him. This time, his encampment was exposed because of sacred envoy Ying. Now, he was blaming him for not going out to fight. You fool. If I were to fight with you, even a fool would be able to guess that this is an extremely important place with 2 peak Unity Realm experts appearing at the same time. The 6-armed lady was furious. If there was only one expert heading out, it could still be explained as an expert living in seclusion. Both of them were at the peak of the Unity Realm. When had peak Unity Realm experts become so common? You actually dare. The black-robed, sacred envoy, Ying, was enraged. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and move the Holy Master statue. The 6-armed woman shouted angrily. She didn't care anymore. As her companion had died too quickly, the 6-armed woman vaguely knew that the possibility of moving the Sacred Master's sculpture away was rather low. Even if she managed to escape with her life, the Sacred Master's sculpture would be destroyed, and the punishment from the ancient saint cult would be worse than death. Moreover, even if she managed to survive, her life would be even more miserable. The absolute loyalty that came from her soul caused her to never think of leaving the ancient sacred cult. Even though she was in despair, she was willing to accept the punishment. However, when it came to Saint Envoy Ying, she only felt rage. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The 6-armed woman shouted angrily with a ferocious expression. All the sacred envoys were doing their best to dismantle the sacred hall. They had even sent out their incarnations, but the construction of the sacred hall was too complicated. Only those at the Unity Realm could barely dismantle it, and they needed some time to do so. Block him. We need to stall for time. I hope he's greedy for credit and hasn't reported this to the Great Void Heaven Temple. The 6-armed woman was filled with anticipation. In the night sky, Equipment Spirit, can you find out what's going on inside the Black City? Dongbua Ying asked. This won't do. There are invisible ripples that are obstructing my probing. The Black Gourd's probing ability was very formidable. However, even when facing an important encampment of the ancient sacred cult, it was still incapable of probing it. Dongbua Ying waved his hand and kept the items left behind by the Frostman. Then, without hesitation, he attacked with all his might. Boom, boom, boom. Countless dark purple fishes attacked the same spot in a frenzy. Ripples appeared on the surface of the Black City, and the hidden spell formation was revealed, forcefully resisting the attack of the dark purple fishes. Boom! Dongbua Ying attacked with his spear as well. Under the attacks of the dark purple spear, the array only shook slightly. However, it wasn't able to break through the spell formation. Its defense is pretty strong. Dongbua Ying frowned. Use your final killing move. If it doesn't work, I can only report it upwards. Since he didn't have full confidence in his investigation, Dongbua Ying wasn't too willing to report it upwards. However, the encampment of the ancient sacred cult was extremely important. The reward from the Great Void Heaven Temple was 1 million contribution points. That was equivalent to 100 origin world rocks. It was said that the price that the ancient sacred world had to pay to construct an encampment was 10 times that of 100 origin world rocks. It was said that the most precious thing was that sculpture of the Saint Master. Dongbua Shui Ying flipped his hand, and a black gourd appeared in his hand. In the underground sacred palace. While the six-armed woman was also rapidly dismantling the sacred palace, she was also making use of the spell formation to observe the movements in the outside world. That origin birth stage, inner hall, elder, Dongbua Shui Ying of the Great Void Heaven Temple attacked the spell formation twice before giving up. Instead, he took out a black gourd. Black gourd? The six-armed woman was puzzled. What treasure is that? Fortunately, as long as he doesn't report it upwards, we still have hope. The six-armed woman hoped silently. Following which, she discovered that the white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying had pulled out the stopper of the black gourd. The stopper was pulled out. Dongbua Shui Ying revealed a look of anticipation. A fiery red crystal ball the size of a finger flew out from the mouth of the black gourd. At the instant it flew out, it expanded rapidly. In an instant, it had already transformed into a huge fireball with a diameter of 10,000 li. As for Dongbua Shui Ying, he had already entered the core of this huge fireball. The huge fireball illuminated the night sky, causing the originally dark night to become dazzling. Countless gray ripples surged, and there was even a fiery liquid tumbling around. Countless void divine runes flowed on its surface. Countless void divine runes densely covered the entire huge fireball. It completely suppressed and controlled the tyrannical power of the fireball. The profoundness of the void divine runes was even greater than the fireball. Countless densely packed void divine runes rippled and directly penetrated the spell formation below, and even spread to the underground sacred palace below. Moreover, its area of influence was extremely large. It continued to spread, and an area of 10,000 li was under its control. Void spell formation. Dongbua Shui Ying was inside the fireball, and he could not help but exclaim when he sensed the huge void spell formation. It was this void spell formation that perfectly controlled this celestial body that was comparable to his hometown's sun star. Being a void walker who had reached the final realm, Gu Qi, his attainment in the void had reached an unfathomable realm. By relying on the void spell formation, Dongbua Shui Ying could control an area of 10,000 li. Furthermore, he could use the ultra-long distance Great Void teleportation. This was his strongest escape technique, controlling the fireball and controlling the void spell formation to escape. The fireball could protect him, and the spell formation could allow him to escape quickly. Unless the true body of a primal chaos realm giant appeared, it was practically impossible to deal against him. Within the underground sacred palace. The six-armed girl and the black-robed male revealed looks of terror and despair. They could feel the surrounding space solidifying. An incomparably terrifying void suppression was descending. Teleport. Hurry up and teleport. The black-robed male immediately tried to control the teleportation treasure given to him by his elder brother. But no matter how he activated it, he could not teleport at all. The black gourd was a protective treasure. Only when Dongbua Shui Ying became a void god could he unleash its third-level power, which was also its final power. The power of the fireball could be completely controlled, and the void array could be completely activated too. This was a void array personally constructed by Gu Qi. Even a primal chaos realm giant would have to rely on his strength to tear apart the void in order to escape from this void suppression. In terms of pure control of the void, it could not be compared with this array. We can't escape anymore. The six-armed girl's face was filled with despair. This void suppression was too strong. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was within this enormous fireball with a diameter of 5,000 kilometers. He controlled this terrifying fireball to descend abruptly. This was simply a furious smash from the entire Sunstar. Furthermore, the power of the Sunstar was too scattered, and the power of this fireball was completely converged into one under the control of the void spell formation. Its power had reached the primal chaos realm. It was just that he was lacking in terms of realm. He could only use the most barbaric technique and could not fight against the true body of a primal chaos realm giant. But against a unity realm expert, it could sweep across all. Even though the array of the Black City was firm, it shattered under the descent of this enormous fireball. The entire Black City trembled under such power. Chapter 843. A large group of sacred followers lived within the Black City. They flew out like locusts, and when they looked up and saw that huge fireball that was emitting endless heat, they were completely frightened. After all, the strength of the sacred followers was much weaker. The strongest among them were ordinary void gods, and most were true gods. Facing the terrifying suppression from a primal chaos realm, they could not help but feel despair in their hearts. This is more terrifying than the sun star in the sky. Too frightening. These sacred followers did not have any thoughts of resisting. That huge fireball suddenly shrunk. It turned into a dazzling rainbow light before smashing down on the ground at the core of the entire Black City. Sacred Palace. It's the Sacred Palace. Hurry up and stop him. The eyes of these sacred followers turned red at that moment. The loyalty that came from their souls made them disregard their fear and rush in the direction of the underground Sacred Palace. In their subconscious, even if they died, they would protect the Sacred Palace well. Dongboi Shui Ying had easily grasped the situation within a region of 5 million kilometers through the void array. Naturally, he discovered this underground Sacred Palace. The huge fireball rapidly shrunk before smashing down, destroying many mechanisms and restrictions along the way to the underground Sacred Palace. The ultimate power of the Black Gourd relied on hiding within the fireball for protection and relying on the entire fireball to smash down. It was a simple smash, yet its power was horrifying. The fireball that was comparable to the sun star rapidly shrunk. It was completely condensed into a smash. In terms of brute force, it was absolutely at the level of a primal chaos realm giant. Within the underground Sacred Palace. Not good, he is here. The six-armed girl trembled slightly as she looked outside the palace door. The black-robed sacred emissary Qi Yun and the other sacred emissaries could feel a terrifying power destroying all obstructions leading to the underground Sacred Palace. Hong Long Long. The fireball that shrunk to a diameter of 100 meters appeared by the entrance of the Sacred Palace. It rolled in. This fireball was dazzling. Even the group of sacred emissaries found it dazzling. Within the fireball, there was a figure faintly visible. It's over. The six-armed girl could not summon any thoughts of resisting. Just like a peak Unity Realm expert who passed through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda, facing an ordinary Unity Realm expert at the 1st level of Star Pagoda, it would be a large-scale massacre. And those who had passed through the 5th level of Star Pagoda and reached the boundary of the Primal Chaos Realm could easily slaughter peak Unity Realm experts. Even if they faced a true Primal Chaos Realm expert, it was still possible for them to escape. The fireball from the Black Gourd was comparable to a level 6 fireball in terms of pure power, but it was much weaker in terms of technique. Overall, it was comparable to a level 5 fireball. With his Black Gourd, as long as his primal chaos true body did not act, he would not have to worry about self-preservation. From this, it could be seen that the ultimate existence, Gu Dai, valued and cherished his disciples very much. Eldest brother. The black-robed man, sacred emissary Qi Yun, anxiously sent a message for help. His elder brother was in the faraway ancient saint world, and it was extremely difficult to send a message from such a far distance. The members of the ancient saint cult who were stationed here would usually communicate with the ancient saint world through the sacred leader statue. There were only 3 who could contact the ancient saint world with their own communication treasures. Other than the Frost Man and the 6-armed woman, there was only sacred envoy Qi Yun. His communication treasure was personally bestowed by his elder brother. Big brother, save me, save me. Sacred emissary Qi Yun was currently in complete despair and fear. He didn't know what to do as he couldn't see any hope of escaping. The void was completely suppressed, and there was no way to teleport. He could only fly slowly. Fly? Escape from this elder Dongbua who was controlling these terrifying fireballs? The six-armed woman glanced at sacred envoy Qi Yun. Seeing how anxious he was, she couldn't help but laugh coldly as she transmitted a message. Fool, you won't be able to escape. Even if your elder brother wants to save you, he's far away in the ancient saint world and won't be able to rush over. Boom! The rolling fireballs were extremely fast as they smashed onto the bodies of the sacred envoys. The heat of the fireballs was secondary. The most important thing was the strength of the collision. Pung, 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 pung. The fireballs were like illusions as they collided continuously. Dongbua Shui smashed his way through. As long as the sacred envoys were hit, their bodies would be smashed into smithereens. However, the items that they were carrying were still protected by Dongbua Shui using the void array. Pung. The black-robed sacred envoy Qi Yun was the third sacred envoy to be struck by the fireball. The surface of his body was covered with a protective layer of light. However, the first strike from a fireball had caused the black protective layer of light to be smashed into smithereens. After a slight pause, the fireball continued on its way. The black-robed man widened his eyes as he looked at the terrifying fireball crashing towards him. His eyes were filled with despair. Following which, the fireball continued on its way, smashing the black-robed man into smithereens. His items were also absorbed into the fireball by the void array. Dongbua Shui was within the fireball and wasn't injured at all. His items were absorbed into the fireball one by one. That six-armed woman was facing the suppression of the fireball. However, she still charged forward in a frenzy. Each of her 6 hands was holding onto a curved blade. For a moment, she turned into a demonic bloodlight. However, under the suppression of the fireball, her body was still smashed into smithereens. No one could resist it. The black-robed, sacred envoy Qi Yun's protective treasure was only able to stop the fireball for a moment. In less than a breath's time, within the underground sacred hall, all the sacred envoys were dead. Within the fireball, Dongbua Shui looked at the statue of the sacred lord. The statue of the sacred lord looked as though it was carved out of black jade. It was draped in a silk robe, and its eyes were calm, yet seemed to contain boundless profoundness. Looking at this statue of the sacred lord would cause one to feel an uncontrollable urge to submit to it. Sacred lord, Dongbua Shui thought, the one who monopolizes the entire ancient saint world. The undisputed, strongest expert amongst the final realm existences. Boom! Without any hesitation, Dongbua Shui controlled the fireball and charged over. Boom! The fireball slammed onto the statue of the sacred lord. The statue of the sacred lord was one with the entire sacred hall. It was completely fixed and hard to move. However, the sacred envoys had already dismantled a portion of the sacred hall earlier on. At this moment, the full force of the fireball still caused the statue of the sacred lord to be sent flying. It then slammed into a wall far away before falling down. Both of the statue's legs were still connected to the black metal. There was even a dent on the chest area of the statue. Based on the intelligence, the statue of the sacred lord must be destroyed after obtaining it. Dongbua Shui thought, however, it seems to be quite sturdy. My full force strike only caused a dent? South Dongbua Shui controlled the void and kept the statue of the sacred lord into a brand new paradise treasure. It's better to send it back to the great void heaven temple and let the sky palace slowly destroy it. Dongbua Shui thought to himself. After a simple check on this tattered underground sacred hall, Dongbua Shui rode on the fireball and flew out. With a whoosh, he shot up into the sky and flew out along the passage he came from. In the outside world, within the Black City, a large group of holy disciples were originally rushing over. However, The moment the statue of the sacred lord was sent flying, all of them stopped in their tracks as a look of despair appeared on their faces. Sacred Lord, Sacred Lord. All of the holy disciples stood up solemnly. Their hands formed seals as they called out, Sacred Lord, following which their bodies disintegrated into nothingness. When Dongbua Shui Ying kept the statue of the sacred lord and rode on the fireball to fly out, he saw a large number of holy disciples standing within the Black City. Their faces were filled with holiness as their bodies disintegrated into nothingness. Dongbua Shui Ying watched everything silently. All the holy disciples within the Black City had died. All of them had turned into nothingness. Currently, there was only Dongbua Shui Ying left alive within the Black City. The fireball floated within the Black City. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the deathly, silent Black City. The ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion deserve death. Dongbua Shui Ying muttered. They wantonly spread their religion and even controlled many cultivators, forcing them to be absolutely loyal to the sacred lord and ancestor mother. If they were not controlled, why would they die just because the statue of the sacred lord was snatched away? Chapter 844. Within the cultivation Eden treasure. Several dozen cages were filled with cultivators. More than half of them were true god rulers, and a small portion were void gods. They were temporarily brought along by the black-robed, sacred emissary Qi Yun when he was spreading his religion. He felt that he could not control them by relying on the cages alone. Thus, he temporarily brought them along with him and prepared to control them through the underground sacred palace. Nevertheless, this time, when he returned to the base in a sorry state, Dongbua Shui Ying came attacking, until the black-robed, sacred emissary Qi Yun died, because he was focused on moving the sacred master sculpture at the start, and later on, he was facing death and despair. He had forgotten that there were still cultivators imprisoned within the cultivation Eden treasure. In his heart, they were all ants. He had only brought along those with high talents for the sake of earning contribution points. Fortunately, they are still alive. After refining the cultivation Eden treasure, Dongbua Shui Ying sent his consciousness into this cultivation Eden treasure. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Qing Ruo is also alive. Because of that muscular male Lei Chun, Dongbua Shui Ying had deliberately collected intelligence on his wife, Qing Ruo. Knowing the appearance of the other party, Dongbua Shui Ying was able to immediately recognize Qing Ruo within one of the cages. Ka. Dongbua Shui Ying's energy descended. Many cages were opened, and the cultivators whose souls were sealed within were also released by Dongbua Shui Ying. What is happening? Why did they let us out? These cultivators were slightly dazed. The ancient sacred religion was very cautious. It was impossible for them to release the seals on their souls because the moment they were released, they could commit suicide at any time. But now that they were released, these cultivators could vaguely guess that they might have been saved. Very soon, I'll bring all of you to the Celestial Water City. By then, all of you will regain your freedom. Dongbua Shui Ying's voice reverberated within the cultivation Eden treasure. We have been saved. Celestial Water City? It must be a special emissary from the Celestial Water City. They were all excited and overjoyed. These cultivators living in the sacred world had long known how frightening the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion were. The moment they were controlled, they would be absolutely loyal. Being true god rulers and void gods who had cultivated to their current level, they had relatively high talents. Naturally, they would persevere on and were unwilling to lose themselves. And now they were finally saved. Phew! While the cultivators were excited, Qing Ruo disappeared and was teleported away. Qing Ruo felt her surroundings change, and she appeared in a dark but slightly dilapidated city. Beside him was a young man dressed in white. Who is he? Qing Ruo was slightly puzzled. The white-robed Shui Ying stood by the side. With a wave of his hand, he released Lei Chun. The burly Lei Chun was very nervous. He was afraid that Elder Dongbo of the Great Void Heaven Temple wouldn't be able to break through this place. He was also afraid that if he breached this place, his wife would be implicated in the battle and die. In any case, Lei Chen's heart was filled with unease. But when Dongbua Shui-Ying released him and he saw the green-robed woman in front of him, he felt his soul tremble. Qing Ruo. Lei Chun rushed over excitedly. Chun. Qing Ruo was excited as well. The two of them had been together ever since they were weak. Step by step, they roamed the cosmos together and experienced many dangers. They also had several fortuitous encounters together. They had long treated the other party as the most important existence in their lives, more important than their own. The two of them could not help but rush together and embrace each other. Not far away, white-robed Dongbua Shuang could not help but reveal a grin when he saw this. Even though all the sacred followers in this city had turned into ashes, he had at least saved some people, including this couple. Looking at this couple, Dongbua Shuang could not help but think about his wife in his hometown cosmos. Jing Xiu, how are you in Qing Yao? Rest assured, I will bring back the best cultivation materials. Dongbua Shuang thought. Now that he had become an inner hall elder, he was filled with confidence towards the future. This path of cultivation, he would definitely become stronger. Nobody could stop him. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to obtain more valuable treasures and return to meet his wife. Dongbua Shuang flipped his hand, and a message token appeared in his hand. He contacted, Ancestor Demon, I am Dongbua Shuang. What's the matter? Ancestor Demon replied, I have destroyed an important base of the ancient saint religion. Dongbua Shuang replied, this is the address. He sent a message over. An important base of the ancient saint world? Is it a base with a sacred leader sculpture, or just an ordinary base? Ancestor Demon asked. There were a total of 90 bases in the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world, and Dongbua Shui-Ying had destroyed one. Based on what he knew, the base's formation was extremely strong. With Dongbua Shui-Ying's current strength, was he able to destroy the formation? It should be some ordinary small base. I have already obtained the sacred leader sculpture. Dongbua Shui-Ying said. All right, I will come now. Ancestor Demon no longer had any doubts. The sacred leader sculpture could not be faked. Dongbua Shui-Ying kept the message token. Looking at this silent black city, the east side of the city had already turned white and the sky was starting to brighten. Hong Long Long, a terrifying will directly descended into the sky and began to madly control the power of the world and the surroundings. The power of the world surged and gathered, forming a huge whirlpool. The commotion was so great that Lei Chun and Qing Ruo, who were immersed in joy, couldn't help but raise their heads and look into the distance. The whirlpool in the distance was too huge, and its might was terrifying. Elder Dongbua. Lei Chun hurriedly pulled his wife, Qing Ruo, over. He was a little ashamed. Thank you, Elder Dongbua, for saving me and my wife. The two of us will never forget your kindness. Thank you, Elder Dongbua, for saving us. Qing Ruo said. Dongbua Shui-Ying smiled at the couple. I was just helping out in passing. Speaking of which, I have to thank Lei Chun for helping me find this place. The ancient sacred religion was extremely cautious. It was extremely difficult to find a base. Fortunately, Lei Chun and his wife had a fortuitous encounter that allowed them to sense the soul. The soul sense was too mysterious, and that sacred emissary Qi Yun did not expect it. That was why they were followed by Dongbua Shui-Ying in the dark. That is, Lei Chun and Qing Ruo looked at the whirlpool in shock, but they did not dare to ask. Dongbua Shui-Ying looked up. The whirlpool rapidly condensed and finally formed a black-robed handsome male. He had blood-colored long hair, and when his eyes swept across, Lei Chun and Qing Ruo felt their souls trembling. They did not dare to raise their heads. The white-robed Dongbua Shui-Ying flew up to welcome him. Ancestor Devil, Dongbua Shui-Ying said. Because they were in the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple, primal chaos giants could send their incarnations down. But the incarnations had to control the heaven and earth energy to condense. That was why the commotion was huge. The process of descending would take some time. This was also the reason why every primal chaos city would have an incarnation of a primal chaos giant station there. Only by stationing there could they immediately engage in battle. And to descend from an ultra-long distance, they had to control the heaven and earth energy to condense their incarnations. For a true powerhouse, they would have long since escaped after killing so many people. Thus, being an inner hall elder, Dongbua Shui Ying's identity talisman was also a life-saving talisman. During crucial moments, he would first save his life before summoning others. Even Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master could descend with their incarnations. The speed at which their incarnations descended was much faster. This was also why the ancient sacred religion could only hide in the darkness within the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple and did not dare to fight openly. Quite formidable. Ancestor Devil looked at Dongbua Shuang. The edge of his lips curled upwards. You broke through an important base of the ancient sacred religion. It was luck. Dongbua Shuang said. He waved his hand and took out the Sacred Master sculpture. This is the Sacred Master sculpture. It is harder to destroy. Dongbua Shuang said. Ancestor Devil looked at the dent on the chest of the Sacred Master sculpture. He could not help but feel slightly startled. He glanced at Dongbua Shuang. It seemed this old friend of his still had some hidden techniques. Otherwise, how could he forcefully break through a base and even damage the Sacred Master sculpture? Sacred Master sculpture. It would be a huge profit if we were to sell it to the ancient sacred world. What a pity that we can't sell it. Ancestor Devil said. We have to bring it back and destroy it. Its toughness is comparable to a middle-grade void god weapon. It isn't easy to destroy it. This incarnation of mine can't deal with it. Ancestor Devil then saw the husband and wife, Lei Chun and Qing Ruo, in the Black City below. Let them come over. I want to destroy this city. Ancestor Devil said. Dongbua Shuang nodded. He immediately flew over and asked, Lei Chun, are the two of you returning to the Golden Wing Nation or the Celestial Water City? Because of Lei Chun, he was able to achieve great merits. Therefore, he was willing to take a detour for Lei Chun. Lei Chun and Qing Ruo exchanged glances. Lei Chun did not hesitate and said, Elder Dongbua, let's go to the Celestial Water City. They had already planned to go there. Furthermore, they had experienced many difficulties this time around. A small place like the Golden Wing Nation was ultimately too dangerous. If they had the chance to go to the Celestial Water City, they would definitely go there. Even the fees for the teleportation array was waived. All right, the two of you shall wait within the Eden Treasure. Dongbua Shuang kept them into the Eden Treasure and flew back to the side of Ancestor Devil. Ancestor Devil looked down and stretched out his right hand. Hong Long Long. Boundless cold air appeared from the void and rapidly froze the entire Black City. Under the control of Ancestor Devil, the Black City started to let out ka-ka-ka sounds. Finally, many parts of the city started to crumble. In just a short moment, the Black City, along with the broken Sacred Palace Hall and even the surrounding land, were completely destroyed and turned into nothingness. A huge crater appeared. Let's go. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbua Shuang and tore open a time-space tunnel. They entered the time-space tunnel and left rapidly. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.